This is the AM News. Let's begin with the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission, who's asking customers not to rely on middlemen and deal directly with the Volta River Authority officials for the required electrification services. Speaking at a forum in Sunyani for stakeholders under the self-help electrification project, Bono Regional Manager Patrick Entry said while the Commission works with VRA to ensure the availability of meters, consumers who encourage illegal activities would have the loss to contend with. Precious Semevo has more.
The Public Utilities Regulatory Commission (PURC) and the VRA NEDCO Forum brought together stakeholders under the Self-Help Electrification Project (SHEP) in the Bono and Ahafo regions to deliberate on concerns affecting effective and efficient customer service. The government expects to have the country connected to the national grid through the SHEP project by 2030. But it is saddled with many concerns as raised by the stakeholders, including the Bono Regional Minister Justina Osubanahini. Among the concerns are rotten poles, bills delay, power outages and delays in meter sales, leading to the use of middlemen, resulting in illegal connections and loss of revenue and lives.
Then submit and find themselves in the hands of consumers. After the end of the day, you baby, no, not enquire there, enquire papa. Now, if you have a bed done, you know, Manso, because you know, I mean, we consumers and you as a service providers.
The Sunyani area manager of NEDCO, Engineer Eugene Odoi Ado, wants customers to test the system since they have enough meters in stock.
I think the main driving force behind this is the sale of energy meters to unsuspecting customers in the region, and it is impacting negatively on our losses. And then it is also resulting in customers' bill getting piled up, and that's something that we think we should nip it in the bud. So it is not just because the system is inefficient. There could be some little laxity on our part because we all have challenges. But like I always say, test the system. But if you go through the system, I assure you within 2 weeks, if we all play our part where we can get your service connection.
PURC's Bono Regional Manager Patrick Entry called on consumers to engage service providers directly for their required services.
Most people have complained about VRA NEDCO, and if you ask them if they've been to the office before, they have never been there. And I always say, regardless of how sometimes stressful the process might be at VRA, we believe that whatever is good, whatever is bad is bad. That shouldn't encourage you to involve or get yourself involved in illegal connection activities. But what we are doing as a commission also as well in the region is to make sure that all the time VRA has enough meters to supply to consumers. Now, if consumers come to you and you don't even have meters, you should find ways and means of making sure that these people get meters as soon as meters are available. Because at the end of the day, it's the meters that you use to generate your revenue to run your business. So we believe that as we are holding this forum together with VRA, it's not going to stop us from actually making sure that we monitor VRA to make sure they provide the necessary materials, the necessary meters for consumers to be able to enjoy power, so also to stop them from involving themselves in illegal connection activities.
Precious Semevo, Joy News, Sunyani.
The Kwadaso municipality in Ashanti region is among areas with the lowest family planning acceptance rates in the country. Health authorities are concerned that despite increased advocacy and sensitization, the area performed poorly with a family planning acceptance rate of 11.5 as against the national target of 40%. Municipal Health Director Grace Billy Campintip says her outfit is also faced with negative utterances from members of the public. There's more in the following report.
Ghana's Ministry of Health is committed to increasing the modern contraceptive prevalence rates, especially among married women, from 30% in 2020 to 44.4% by the end of 2030. This is expected to be achieved through expanded method choice, improved service delivery, and enhanced data management. It is also expected to reduce the unmet need for contraception among sexually active adolescents from 30 to 57% by December 2030 through the promotion of reproductive health education, among others. But despite several efforts, including roadshows to encourage residents to accept family planning, the acceptor rate is still low in the Kwadaso municipality. The area recorded a drop in family planning cases from 4,535 cases in 2021 to 4,400 280 cases in 2023, representing 11.5% of the total subscribed. The situation has left Municipal Health Director Grace Billy Kampitip frustrated.
So the situation in Kwadaso is quite interesting. Over the past 3 years, family planning rate has been consistently low. So in 2022, we did a lot of commodity show. We targeted the university community. We went to lorry terminals, we went to churches, we targeted groups, organized groups like the Dressmakers and Tailoring Association, the Beauticians Association, but it didn't really yield much results. So for 2022, we were able to record a marginal increase. We recorded about 12.9% for family planning, and you realize for 2023 it decreased again to 11.5%, which is a worrying situation. We're also looking at re-registration of the long-term method, that seeks to provide protection for a long period of time.
Ms. Kampitip spoke to Joy News on the sidelines of the Assembly's annual performance review. She said despite the setback, the Directorate will continue to engage residents at a time condom usage has also gone down among men. The municipality also saw its skilled delivery figures cut from 43.9% in 2022 to 41.2% in 2023. Ms. Kampitip says the Directorate will investigate what is contributing to the trend.
I'm very worried about the fact that skilled delivery rates is low. Okay, we have had, so we could attribute it a bit to the fact that some of our midwives have traveled out for greener pastures. However, as a municipality, the numbers that we have for midwives, especially for the government facilities, is still very good. We can't say same for the private facilities. Most of the private facilities do not have these skilled personnel, and that is the reason for which you have most of them referring cases.
Woyome reports read to you.
Now, across Africa, malaria continues to take lives. More than 600,000 people were killed in 2021 alone, and each year, many more people, especially children, die from the disease. The Pan-African Bank, EcoBank PLC, is seeking to reverse the trend. General Manager of Joy Brands, Fifi Kumsin, joined the bank's Zero Malaria Business Leaders Initiative Conference in Lomé and now reports.
Timenda mintumenda metekata so santi adechia na miniska na makobo besia na mejenuka na mede no hospital nti aya sa akrampo no sika medidi medwane na asai.
According to the World Malaria Report, an estimated 249 million malaria cases were reported globally across 85 countries where the disease is endemic. This was in 2022. More than 600,000 people were killed. According to the WHO, Ghana alone is estimated to have witnessed 11,557 malaria-related deaths, although only 151 were officially recorded. Under its Zero Malaria Business Leaders Initiative, EcoBank aims to rally businesses to completely eradicate malaria in Africa. Elisa Desbordes is the Director of Operations at the EcoBank Foundation.
I strongly think that business leaders are also a role model, and that they can also, having business leaders engaged means also that they will be able to move the lines, and they will also be able to have even more business leaders involved. Because malaria, specifically in Africa, malaria unfortunately remains a huge burden on the continent. And although it's a disease that it's entirely preventable, preventable and that is entirely treatable. And we can't, I believe that we can't afford to still have this disease, and I do believe that we all have a role to play, but specifically business leaders, and I'm really excited about this initiative that has so far had great results.
During the conference in Lome, Togo, participants discussed the urgency of eradicating malaria, highlighting the need for immediate action. EcoBank Ghana is poised to spearhead efforts in the country. Daniel Kasati leads communication for EcoBank Ghana.
So, as part of the Assembly initiative, we also have on board the National Malaria Elimination Program coming from the Ministry of Health. They are the Health Ministry. They have a 5-year strategic plan for Ghana. That is to ensure that we eliminate malaria. Now for EcoBank, we are on board to use our brand and our network to galvanize support from the business community, bring business leaders together to be able to mobilize funds and channeling same into promoting all the activities within the 5-year strategic plan so that we work together to eliminate malaria. We started this course by creating a fund and putting into it $120,000 as seed capital, and we expect business leaders to also contribute both in cash and kind towards this initiative.
Away from that, migration remains a global issue with significant societal and geopolitical implications. Addressing this and many other migration challenges, the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center has launched its 3rd edition of the Kofi Annan Peacekeeping Security Forum on Migration. Commandant of the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center, Major General Richard Edujani, says mitigating migration-related issues requires an adequate understanding of migration procedure.
Addressing conflicts and peace building in Africa needs an exploration of how migration dynamics intersect with societal resilience in the context of a multipolar global framework. It involves examining the impact of conflicts on migration patterns in Africa and proposing strategies to promote peace and resilience within the continent. The forum will delve into understanding how people moving from one place to Commandant of the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center, Major General Richard Edujani, stressed the need for state actors to get an understanding of the inconsistencies in migration procedures.
This highly anticipated event brings together prominent figures to tackle burning issues of migration and its impact on global resilience in Africa. The theme for CAS Forum 2024 is Migration and Societal Resilience in a Multipolar World Order, addressing conflicts and building peace in Africa. Why is this relevant? As political tremors shake continents, the world order transitions from a unipolar landscape to a multipolar one. The shift, coupled with recent crises in Africa, Europe, and the Middle East, is pushing migration trends to new heights. Africa is faced with armed conflict, which has created instability in countries like Ethiopia, Mali, South Sudan, and the Democratic Republic of Congo, forcing people to flee their homes. Climate change is increasingly causing droughts, floods, and extreme weather conditions, which are increasingly displacing communities, particularly in the Sahel region and East Africa. State and non-state actors are playing a complex game, leaving crucial questions unanswered. The CAS Forum 2024 convenes over 200 high-level delegates and specialists from various fields, including political leadership, governance, diplomacy, security, and academia. This diverse task force will crack the code on migration's impact on security, forging solutions and collaborations to prevent instability.
Deputy Head of Mission at the German Embassy in Ghana, Her Excellency Ms. Sivine Johnson, asserts that migration remains a pressing challenge in the world.
It is a timely theme, as migration remains one of the world's most important, complex, and pressing challenges. According to the World Development Report of last year, 2.3% of the world's population live outside of their country of origin. This puts a double strain, particularly on low and middle income countries, as they first of all have to deal with a crisis that forces refugees to leave their home, but also have to host them in other parts of the countries and create new homes for them. Germany has been a consistent partner for CAPS, both technically and financially, since its inception in 2019. CAPS Forum has become a critical regional platform that allows policymakers, practitioners, politicians, media, and academics to dialogue and explore long and medium-term solutions to emerging security threats on the African continent. This must be sustained. Germany is committed to enhancing the platform for such critical decisions.
The third edition of the Kofi Annan Peace and Security Forum will take place from 27th to 28th February 2024 on the theme Migration and Societal Resilience in a Multipolar World Order, addressing conflicts and peace building in Africa. The forum will provide a platform for delegates and participants to explore approaches to addressing migration-related conflicts through effective policies and peace-building mechanisms in the region. Rejoice Semefa Pesu's report, read to you.
That's it for the AM News on the AM Show. Up next is the news review. Please stay.
But just the start of the news review right here today, and we're pleased to bring you the guest that we have lined up for this morning. That is Maxwell Lukuto. He is the NDC's parliamentary candidate for South Tong, and he joins the conversation. Max, good morning. Yo. So interesting times, because in recent days, I've had this very week, Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa, who is the Member of Parliament for North Tong, joined me in the studio. He has been able to raise funds from different quarters with some support from his own pocket to put up 2 facilities to help those who were affected by the dam spillage. I'm talking about the Akosombo Dam spillage. But I'd like to find out from you, since you're just next door, what is the state of your people in South Tong, and what more can be done to alleviate their plight? I think we could start off from there.
Yeah, sure. So good morning again. Good morning to my constituents and to everybody who is listening to us. Happy Friday to you all, and happy Valentine's Day to some of you who I have not met earlier. Like you said,
well, thank you, and same to you.
Yeah, thank you. I was at the commissioning program where the Chief Imam, Sheikh Sharbutu himself, was there. The former President of the Republic of Ghana, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, that's the incoming President, and then the running mate, Jane Nana Akufo-Addo, in the 2020 elections. It was so pleasant to see what North Tong, especially under the leadership of Samuel Ablakwa, has done. We were all full of praise for his sterling performance as a leader, rallying support from all angles, and putting about 6 different blocks for these people who have been taken over by the spillage. Of course, there is a future plan of wanting to turn that into a district nursing training center if the people, after everything, have been able to relocate to their individual homes. Of course, this is a camping situation where bunker beds have been provided in the dormitories. There are some shared kitchens,
Yes, Maxwell, go ahead.
Yeah, so back in my constituency, we would not be able to put anything like that together. Simply because of the difference in the situations that we had. Mepe was actually the epicenter of all the spillage that happens, simply also because of their topography. What I mean by topography is that they have an undulating ground level. Like there are a lot of creeks interspersed with the land in Mepe. And because for a long time, spillage of flood has not taken over those creeks, they became quite comfortable and had to build on some of those creeks. So you go to Mepe, you see that there are a lot of naturally low-lying areas. And so when it happens, all those places were taken over. So apparently, they had a lot more of homes that were taken over completely by the flood. Unlike our place, it's only Sokwe that experienced the extent of that. Of course, Amutinu and the Agbeve areas also experienced that, and some marked homes succumbed to the flood. But apparently, they were able to move to higher grounds around same places, and so they have been able to shelter themselves with family and friends. And so after the flood has receded, most of the people have gone back to their homes. And so the situation we have here is not as dire as we do have in Mepe.
Okay, so there was a difference, which is why the effort has not been same in South Tone, because obviously North Tone was affected more. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, but of course, people would appreciate if we are also able to put some things together. But of course, these are two different individuals who are leaders, and they have their capabilities and abilities differently. And so he's been able to put up that stellar performance to do what he's done. Let's not take away the credit from him. He's done so well. That's my point.
All right. That's a good point to make. And of course, you are not even the member of parliament yet, but you've also been playing your role in that. Right before we get into the papers, there are a lot of topical matters that have taken the country by storm. Since the last interaction, hold for me, Maxwell, since the last time we spoke, I'm going to leave you in about a minute and a half to elaborate on any one you'd like to talk about briefly before we get into the newspapers. So back to you.
Yeah, sure. So like I was saying that, like you tried to put across, yes, as an individual, as a parliamentary candidate, I've also done my bit in trying to sort out those people who in one way or the other had to be supported. Of course, as I speak, there were some wooden bridges in some of the communities, especially Jobove, that because of the spillage, the wooden bridge they have had stayed under the water for quite some time. And so the planks that were used in trying in doing the bridge have also gotten rotten. I am still putting that together for them. Maybe in some few days' time, that bridge will be ready for us to go and commission and give to them so that they can also continue to do their economic activities. That's what I just wanted to chip in. That as a parliamentary candidate, I'm just not sitting down, even though I don't have the full support, or I am not in the circles recognized to be the leader where people would want to channel resources and other things through me. In my small way, I try to also support these communities in one way or the other. And so as I speak, that construction is ongoing, and I'm sure that in some few days I will go and commission that to the people of the government.
All right. So the point I was making was just to make people aware that you are not the member of parliament. So it would not appear that, oh, Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa had done this in North Tone and you had done nothing. It was just to clarify that you are not even in parliament yet. You are not the parliamentarian yet. Of course, I know that you've been doing a few things. So anything you'd like to reflect on briefly in about a minute before we get in? If not, then we can get straight into the papers.
Let's get into the papers.
All right. So the Daily Graphic this morning says forest reclamation, and it kicks off. That's what it says. Then there's Hohoi, home of vast tourism potential. Ghana signs convention to root out genocide and international crime. And Koforidua to host 67th Independence Day celebration. All right, then on the back page, we have increased funding for school feeding program, that's PSG, to government, the Pediatric Society of Ghana. We'll be getting into that. And then Bayfikrom Dam at critically low level. What is happening? I'll bring you details of that. In fact, I'm going to start from there. So the irrigation dam at Bayfikrom near Mankasim in the central region, which also supplies the Ghana Water Company treatment plant as an alternative source of water, is at a critically low level. Now, the dam, initially built in 1974 for irrigation and later as a source for the Bayfikrom waterworks, has a water level of 1 meter. The dam, at full capacity, holds water up to 6 meters and has an acceptable minimum level of 3 meters. So, mind you, the capacity is 6 meters, and then the acceptable minimum level is 3. Now it's at 1 meter, so 2 meters more needed by way of water. Now, the Central Regional Manager of the Ghana Irrigation Development Authority, Ebenezer Kwame, said at 0.86 meters, it's not even at 1, 0.86 meters, the water level would be at its dead stock where it cannot be pumped at all. That is if it gets there from 1. Now, at that level, it would be difficult to take in water for treatment, he stated. The situation has led to water shortages in communities along the irrigation dam at Bayfikrom near Mankasim in the central region. Officials of the Ghana Water Company and the GDA are deliberating on effective ways of saving the dam, which is now at a critically low level. And so with dams, it is interesting. We were just talking about the Akosombo Dam spillage. It's interesting because if it's too high, you have to let go of some of the water, else the dam could, seed, it could bulge, or it could break. There could be a breach. Or if it's too low too, it can't perform, and then everything would go bonkers. But then the Pediatric Society of Ghana has called on the government to increase the funding for the school feeding program as an essential step in combating malnutrition among students. Now, this was contained in a communique issue that has just ended annual general and scientific meeting in Ho. The communique, signed jointly by the president of the PSG, Dr. Hilda Mantibia Boy, and the general secretary, Dr. Gabriel Obenkranteng, commended the government for its steps over the years to address the problem of malnutrition in all its forms in the country. It mentioned the National Nutrition Policy, the school feeding program, and planting for food and jobs as moves with the potential of curbing food insecurity and promoting good nutrition among children. However, the communique maintained it was necessary to expand the school feeding program to benefit other schools to ensure more children enjoyed nutritious meals to meet the minimum daily requirements for all nutrients. And here's where it gets tricky. And I don't even need to read from here. I don't know whether they capture that information. But children between certain early ages, I believe up to about 4, 5, thereabouts, it's critical that they get the right nutrition. Else things like cretinism and others could set in. And guess what that does? It impacts their ability to think. It impacts the development of their brain, which means if their brains don't develop properly, we have basically sacrificed them on the altar of poor planning and poor leadership. Because these same people will be competing with those people from Norway, from Finland, from the US, from the UK and other parts of the world in a global village for the same jobs in future. These are the ones who likely will be our leaders who will have to think for the country. And so basically what we've done is we've cut them at the knees and left them. That's how problematic this is. It reminds me of the school feeding program when it was started under the Kufuor administration and how far we've fallen. As for school feeding, the things we've seen and shown you on TV, I don't even want to go back. You see soup and you wonder whether it's not water with a layer of oil. So it's been pretty problematic. And just to chip in, Maxwell, they mentioned planting for food and jobs. Back at Bishop Herman, back then, I mean, all of us from Accra, Tema and other places, weeding, and we had farms, yam, maize and other things. We cultivated them. Today, the entire system has changed, and part of the problem is because not too many schools are doing that anymore. I don't know. Your take.
Yeah, thank you so much. So on the issue of the dam, constructed since 1974 near Mankasim, and critically we are at 1 meter level now instead of 6 meters. It's unfortunate.
Well, the minimum is 3 meters. So even if they get to 3 meters, it's acceptable.
Yeah, sure. So that's what I mean, that between 6 and 3, and now we are at 1. And so you see, I am not too sure of the engineering that went into the construction of the dam, though, but generally speaking, these are done to be able to give us clean water at some level that can be pumped and then distilled or whichever form, and then pumped into our taps for our use. Unfortunately, because of human activities by the day, when you have a water body, you have some distance off the river. We call it the buffer, within which no construction can happen. Even farming cannot happen, because the more you try to do human activities along the banks of the river, more soil or particles of soil would drift into the water body and begin to make it like choked. And so usually you don't have a lot of human activities to be done along. But now we build so much into even the river itself. And west of all the Galamsey situation we are experiencing these days, is making it such that people will intentionally go and block the source of this river. They will go and divert it, and the river is not able to flow naturally into the dam area for the level to be up and pumped into the system for use. And so as long as we encourage some of these human activities, we are going to be experiencing these things. And water is life. If we continue to experience these things, we may end up importing water from our neighbors to be able to drink, and that will be very critical for us. And so those CEOs, those individuals who are fighting against the continual Galamsey activities, I think that we need to strengthen them and advise ourselves. People are taking all of us to ransom because of the little money they will make into their individual pocket, and they don't care what happens to us. Like you said earlier, if it's too much, it's spilled and people are affected. If it's too low, we don't have water to drink. And it looks like we don't have policy directing the things we do in Ghana. At one time we are low, at the other time we are too much, and we are complaining. And so we need to zoom into action. The Ghana Water Company Limited, the ministry that is responsible, should zoom into action and make sure that we save some of these national assets and not allow the set for monetary gains to overshadow our thinking and allow us to do these things to ourselves. At the end of the day, it comes back to affect all of us. And the earlier we look at these things, the better. About the school feeding program, we have all seen pictures. We've all seen the reality of what our kids are being fed with. And it's unfortunate that you speak about it and people are not able to think around it. I'm not sure whether they are still feeding them with a 0.9 CD or 1 CD. At the point, they wanted it increased to 2 CDs and they never got it. I'm not too sure whether they got it. But if you are feeding somebody with 0.9, that would be pesos, yes, or 9 pesos, 0.9 CDs. Not even less than 1 Ghana CDs. I don't know what you expect to get out of this. When you speak about it, they will say when you buy in bulk, it reduces the cost at the end of the day. But how can you feed somebody with 1 CD or 2 CDs? And so, like you said earlier, this is affecting our children. And beyond the basic schools, it's even transcended into the secondary schools. We have seen the kind of food being fed to our secondary school lads. And you see, even at that level, it becomes also critical because these are the stages that they need good food to be able to develop their strength into adulthood and to be able to take up the responsibilities of the future. If we are not able to do, I'm not sure anybody is putting a knife on our neck. Some of these things at the secondary level, I think, will be pushed more to the basic level to enhance what is supposed to be happening at the basic level. Because, of course, at the secondary school level, most, I'm not saying, oh, yes, the free SHS is of help to most of the people in the secondary school. But like we have long been talking about, and JD has been talking about, let's look at this and review it. When you talk about review, and people say that means cancellation, I don't know which lexicon gave them that understanding. But a review is a review. Ken Oforiatta himself, my friend, he's been given the sack. Said in the time past that let's allow people who can take care of their children in the secondary schools to do same. And those who cannot take care of their children should be taken care of. The most insensitive one is why somebody is a day student, you still have to feed him. Or why somebody equal to a day student is in the boarding house free, not paying rent, and still giving food for free. And so these are some of the things we want to look at, rationalize them, and make sure that if we have to pump more money into the basic level, we do that to enhance the IQ of our children at that level. We need to seriously have a dialogue, and we cannot pretend that all is well. We have to look at these things. And the earlier we do this, the better. We can't pretend to be ostriches, burying our neck in the mud, and then our full body is shown or being shown outside.
Right.
And so let's do these things and make sure that we get something good out of them.
All right. So on that point, I have to add, and maybe I don't even know whether to mention the school, because sometimes you mention and then next thing you know, the leadership of that school is targeted, the headmaster, assistant are invited. But let me just say that a school very close to me, my heart, not close in proximity. And, you know, we've heard these stories from different places. You remember from last year, the buffer stock issues we had, or was it last 2 years? And institutions where there would be porridge without sugar and all of that bread, and children had to. Recently, there was a caller who called here and made mention of same grade A school, Volta region. I'll not mention the name of the school, just to protect the headmaster and assistant. Maybe, and it's not that the Ghana Education Service and the Ministry of Education do not know this. They know it. But this person called, and guess what? PTA, you know, engagements and all of that. Now their children are telling them that in this boarding house, right, when they serve you porridge, you must come with your own sugar and your own bread. Before you can enjoy the porridge. So if that's what's happening, then who knows what when they are served rice? Maybe they'll have to bring their own stew or shito. You know, I mean, back then in our day, even we felt, you know, but the beans, and yeah, you would have beans with some weevils and but I mean, we got by. It was good. You would have your fish on certain days. You would have your stew, your kontomire. You would have your porridge, maybe Milo at another. I mean, it was good. It was good. Now, when you look at some of what they have to deal with, so look, we always say, and when we say it, people act like ostriches. They want to shy away from everything. But listen, free SHS. If we quantify, I see parents who are paying more than they would have paid, I believe, you know, things had been, because you look at the dynamics. So wait, if you're paying so much, then what is it? Now you have parents. I have some on my phone now. If anybody were to ask me, I'll show you. People have to literally buy bunkers because of the numbers. There's no bed for your ward, no bed for your child. You have to get a bunker. Buy a bunker, a bunk bed, basically, not a bunker, a bunk bed, and take it to the school. Now, when it comes to nutrition, and I don't get it, you want children to study. I've been through the mill. There's no way you can study, use your brain properly, if you are not getting proper nutrition. It's not going to happen. So you want them to study, yet even for porridge, cocoa or konomono, just or the no any sichire and in the brodoba. I don't know.
Yeah, so Ben, that's the situation we have found ourselves in, and it's so unfortunate. And good you mentioned this Woyome issue. I don't know whether you are aware I'm also a boo-boo.
I was trying to protect the leaders of the institution, and you brought it up. Eh?
Oh no, I'm not talking about your case. I'm only talking about the school farming thing we used to do in Woyome. You remember Saturdays, we go to the farm very early in the morning. We go and do the farming, the yam and other things we talk about. And you remember we were having beans as breakfast, remember?
Yes. Gobe.
So after the farm, you come and take beans as breakfast. And that was a heavy breakfast. And we were so delighted and happy about it. And it was so good. You see, it increased our nutrition and it made us so good in trying to go through our academics. We have a lot of schools with so much land. I speak as the past president of Sogasco Old Students Association. I was the national president. Sogasco has over 250 acres of land lying fallow. The school wants only somebody to provide them with a tractor so that they can plow at least about 100 acres and allow students to do this as pastime activity. Of course, it is high time we take agri away, or we don't push agri to the system as if it's a punishment to students, that if they want to punish you, they send you to the school farm. No, it should be a passion. It should be something all of us do. I remember Sogasco those times when we are going on holidays, because we have a piggery, we have a poultry, so So during holidays, they kill the pigs for us, and then we feed the last day before we go home. And it was a sight to behold. We were expecting that, so nobody will go earlier until we have the lunch of pork. So once students know that there's a benefit to gain from the school farm, they will engage in it. So just provide tractor to the schools and allow them to farm themselves. Use the students, they will do it as pastime, so that even after school, some of them will take agri as a vocation. But we don't do this. The land are just there. People are encroaching on them, building on them every day, and then we continue to cry for food. And the people are there. We pretend to be feeding them, and they also pretend to be schooling. And at the end of the day, we go and buy past questions for them just to pass the exam for us to have a
on that last point about buying past questions for them just so they'll pass. Past questions, well, even during our time, we went for past questions. It's not so much about any pass rate. It isn't. It's about what they can do, right? We like rote learning in this country. It's all about chew, pour, pass, forget. After you have compelled that person to go over these past questions, and they know that, a ruminant has 4 stomachs. I remember all those things. Omasum, abomasum, rectum, reticulum, and all of those things we studied back then. Yeah. After that, what's the application of it? What does it do to you? What does it? It's not so much about, look, a typical example, English and mathematics. Yeah. You go for, and I've gone for some of these aptitude tests in the past, and you see that people are struggling. They simply don't have the basics when it comes to mathematics, don't have the basics when it comes to logical thinking, don't have the basics when it comes to English. And so you see people at a certain level and what they are doing. So you ask yourself, what are we studying? What are we putting ourselves through? And a lot of my lecturer friends in universities keep complaining that the quality coming to them, I mean, some of them have to go back to some things before you can even continue with them in a first semester or even a second semester in first year university. That's my concern. It's not even so much about past questions and all of that. They are simply not meeting certain standards. And my fear, these are the same people who will become leaders of the future. What will they do for Ghana? These are the same people who will have to go neck and neck, toe to toe with people in other jurisdictions. How will they fare? These are the people who will be expected to sign contracts for Ghana in the future. Will they even know what they're doing? I don't know.
Yeah, so my point actually is not about the past question, but so that government wants to look good in the eyes of the world, that they are producing students who have good grades, and for that matter, the thing is in them. That's my point. So that let's allow these people to naturally flow through the system. What we have to do to ensure that they have good feeding, we do. So that they have their IQs properly developed, we do. So that beyond the secondary school that we are forcing so much, I don't know why, maybe because of just the votes, because you see, beyond secondary school, these people would have attained 18 and they may be wanting to go to vote. For which reason somebody thinks that he wants to own them and that they will perpetually vote for him or her. And so these are the reasons why we do this. Most of them are crowded in political decisions. And it's not helping us as a people. Our children, my own daughter, have gone through the system. And like you said, every semester, at the end of every semester, I have to take extra classes and make sure they go through these things. I have to do this, I have to do that, I have to do this. So at the end of the day, it will be more than going through the natural system where they go to school at a particular time, stay for quite some time, they are taught properly, then they are promoted to the next day. Can you imagine that students coming to school for 1 week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, then they go back home and go and stay for 3 months? So what are we doing to ourselves? We are just pretending to be giving free education to these students, and they are coming back with free brain, unfortunately.
Well, thank you for sharing those thoughts with us. But let's get into some other stories. So over 118 hectares of forest reserves that have been degraded by illegal mining activities in some parts of the country are being reclaimed. Now, the reclamation exercise is ongoing at 7 sites in 3 forest reserves in the Ashanti and Western North regions under the $103 million World Bank funded Ghana Forest Investment Program. That's the banner story there in the Daily Graphic newspaper. And Koforidua, of course, is hosting the 67th Independence Day celebration. On the international front, African leaders gather in Ethiopia for AU summit. There's also Haiti working on agreement with Kenya for police deployment, and Arab League pushes for ceasefire resolution despite U.S. threats. Now, members of the Arab group say they have massive support, quote, among UN Security Council members to pass a draft resolution calling for a ceasefire in Gaza. Palestinian Ambassador Riyad Mansour said the impending Israeli military invasion of Rafah would, quote, depopulate the Gaza Strip, and urged council members to vote for the draft when it was advanced by Algeria. I support both sides in this matter, and I also feel when some of these countries that now would want to talk about this escalating situation, including even Egypt, we know the situation there, the UAE, Qatar, and others, when Hamas also did what it did, what was their posturing? I feel there's hypocrisy on both sides, sometimes the West, sometimes the Arab groupings themselves. But in the end, the blame game doesn't lead to anything. What we want is peace and the suffering to end. I don't know whether you have any quick thoughts, because then we can go into the Ghanaian Times and the Daily Guide newspaper. Any quick thoughts, or should I go on?
Yeah, so the forest reclamation is dear to my heart, because you see, these things go a long way to affect us. The climate change we are experiencing these days are due to this intentional destruction of our forest. You allow people to go to our forest to go and mine. Why? And after that, you go and spend $103 million trying to reclaim. Are we right up there? What are our policy makers thinking about? You allow people free rein to go and do these things, and you go back and look for money to come and do this, and then the money is left for our children to come and pay one day. I think that we are letting things too loose for our liking. We should be able to spend it. That doesn't mean that people don't know the essence of our forest in protecting us. Is that what it means? So why would we allow somebody mining concession to go to this very forest to go and mine, and then you come back, go and look for money to come and reclaim? If we are just living in a cyclical movement, people are just interested in money that will go into their pocket. For which reason, the Lands and Natural Resources Ministry will give mining licenses to people to go into this forest to go and mine, and then we'll go and look for money again to come and reclaim. I really don't know what is wrong with that. I really don't know.
Right. The Ghanaian Times newspaper, State Attorney lands in hot water, debarred by General Legal Counsel over 400,000 Ghana cedis of Woyome money. I started seeing the story from yesterday. Speaker rallies MPs to promote Ghanaian languages, culture and dressing. I see you often in your Batakari and others. I think you would fit right into the Speaker's good books. As far as that, you remember there was this talk in the past about using Ghanaian attire and all of that. On that note, you would have to give commendation to the Nigerians and their presidents, among others. They're always, almost always, in there. It's our leaders who like the suits and everything. I always say that on this show, everyone knows me. Those who know me before I came here. If I had my way, and that's why I always look forward to Ghana Month, because it's going to be African prints throughout. But now, sometimes you have to be careful when you say African prints, because sometimes the prints are not even made in Africa. Then, shoddy work renders 3 one village, one dam projects ineffective in the Upper East region. That's according to the WRC. So let me quickly get into that. Oh, and there's 2 prison wardens handed over to police following escape of Chinese inmate. Do you remember that story? A Chinese inmate, he evaporated into thin air. I have a doctor friend who got in touch with me on this matter. Ghana, eh? Anyway, so let me just do this one, and then you can come in. I just want to get details of this story. Then the rest you can just share your quick reflections on them. So, at least 3 dams constructed under the one village, one dam policy in the Upper East region are unable to provide an all-year-round water supply for both domestic and agricultural purposes due to shoddy works by the contractors, the Water Resources Commission has revealed. Now, according to a WRC researcher, Dr. Joan Akandi Atule, the 3 dams, namely Vunania Dam in Navrongo, Gia and Duo dams in Bongo, dried up soon after the raining season ended. As a result of the defects, water leaks through them, making it impossible to serve their purpose. Quick reflections.
Yeah, sure. So the state attorney, it's unfortunate that Samuel Nikwetete has found himself in this hot soup. I think that this thing should continue, and when people misconduct themselves, whether it takes 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, they should be brought to book, so that this would deter other people from willfully doing some of these things against their own state. To go and connive with somebody to due the state of so much money, $51 million, I think it's unfortunate. And so any of those people found directly linked to these things, yes, of course, if we have to go after them, we do. It is only serving as a deterrent for most people who may also in the future want to think along same lines. I think that it's unfortunate. The one village, one dam, I don't know whether we still want to call it a dam because it's a dugout. The minister herself, Howard Kumsing, admitted that the amount of money that was allocated for the construction of these things is not something they can use to construct a dam. So it was a waste of our resources going to use that money to share to party apparatchiks to go and just clear some portion of the land, use excavator or even a grader to just clear it, and then they call it a dam, they take the money and they walk away. Some of these things should not just be spoken about, but if really they think that somebody did a shoddy job, then they have to go after the person. But we speak about these things and it is gone and there's nothing done and it's business as usual. The next another person is giving same contract, he also go and do whatever he likes, walk away knowing that nobody will come and hold him responsible at the end of the day. These are some of the ills we are finding in this government, and many people have spoken against it and we continue to talk about it, but it looks like nobody cares about it. I think that we should go further to bite and to ensure that if it is the contractor who was given some amount of money, who has not been able to execute to standard, where our engineers and then our regulatory bodies, every contract that is given, you have an agency that will be responsible for the monitoring and then the evaluation. So so what happened to this? As for the prison wardens, you allow 2 Chinese to just escape into thin air. It is because when these things happen, nobody is properly punished. So he takes some money, allow the people to go, they arrest him 1 month, 2 months, he stays in prison.
Well, they've been handed over to the police, so let's leave the police to do its work in that regard. We'll see what happens.
My point is that the punishment should be deterrent enough so that going forward, people will look at this and refrain from willfully causing this. Are we saying that these people slept off or whatever and then people just walked away?
Well, that's why I'm saying that we'll leave the police to get into that. We have to go in about a minute and a half, so let me quickly do this. Daily Guide, Ghana-Zambia strengthen trade investment ties. Works Housing Ministry honors Hackman. Top lawyer disbarred over Woyome 400,000 Ghana cedis. Afenyo arrests passage of anti-gay bill, and AG signs International Crimes Convention. In fact, the Afenyo issue is also on page 4 of the New Finder. Anti-LGBTQ bill goes through second consideration stage following Afenyo Markin's motion. I don't know what your take is on that. And the other bit that maybe I'd like you to talk about, cheap funds to private sector expenditure cuts will salvage economy. That's according to Dr. Etuahene. Cheap funds to private sector expenditure cuts will salvage economy. You have a minute and then we can go.
Yeah, sure. So, Afenyo Markin, I am not too sure, even though he has said that he's practically not against the bill.
Right.
The action and inaction of some of the people is not too clear whether they are really against the bill or they are for it. And so they go and they come back. They go and they come back. You know, when the speaker called some time back, I believe it was last year, anyone who was against, did you see any MP stand up? No one stood up. So I think it's concluded. So that's what I'm saying, that behind the scenes they do something. The last I read,
behind the scenes, who does something? Who?
You want me to mention this?
Well, if you know something we don't, I don't know, but you might want to watch it on the legal angle.
Afenyo Markin, they have gone through this bill on several occasions. They've gone through the second reading, now they're going for the third reading, and he's sending them back. They have gone through and it's been rejected. So for me, let's allow these things to go through. Our former President Mahama has completely and flawlessly stated that he's against it. Let's hear other people talk about these things and let's move on. Let's hear other people talk about them.
All right. Maxwell, we have to go. We're grateful for your time this morning. Lovely Batakari, by the way, and the matching headpiece. Maxwell Lukuto is the NDC's parliamentary candidate for South Tong. He joined the conversation. Thank you for staying with us on the AM show. It is indeed my pleasure this morning. I talk so much about women and they're having certain crucial positions in our country. And today I'm excited because I have one such woman right to my side. You'll see her in a bit. In June 2023, thereabouts, I believe, she was actually 2021, it was. She was actually nominated, put forward, went through vetting and she became a Deputy Minister of Information. Now, since that time, it actually makes sense because that reminds me of Dr. Mustafa Hamid ceding to Kojopon Kroma, who was then Deputy. So it appears the Information Ministry has had quite a system going on. Now, she's been put forward by Mr. President to be the substantive Minister of Information. She joins me this morning for breakfast. Fatty Abubakar is her name. Good morning, Fatty.
Good morning, Benjamin.
Sanazwa.
Sanukade.
All right, so good to have you in the studio. Like I said, I'm excited, and I've shared it with you before even the show started. But how excited are you by this development?
I am so excited, but first of all, let me say good morning to you and your crew once again, and to your cherished viewers. I would also like to use the opportunity to express my profound gratitude to the President of the Republic for the confidence reposed in me. He has nominated me twice and appointed me as Deputy Director of Communications at the Presidency for a 4-year period. So I'm so excited that he has set confidence in me and has given me the opportunity to serve again.
All right. For those who may not know too much about Fatty Abubakar, just tell us, who are you? Even before you came into government and all of that, who are you? What have you been up to?
I'm a lawyer and an entrepreneur. Okay. Some people, those who have followed my political career, at least in the last 40 years that I've been in active political communication since 2010, they call me from Chopba to Ghana.
No, I see.
I'm a lawyer and I'm an entrepreneur in the food sector. I've run a family.
You've been in all the bars.
Yes, I've been in all the bars. So I love that business. I'm 37. I hail from Garu in the Upper East region, but I was born and raised in Kumasi. I am passionate about youth development, women empowerment. I am a natural advocate. I have done it over and over again, and that's where my passion is.
So in June 2021, you became a substantive Deputy Information Minister. And since that time, I've been to a few of those engagements at the Information Ministry and seen you there. Some I've watched on TV. But now you've been proposed to be the minister. You are the minister designate. That means you'll have to go through another round of vetting because this is your first time that you're going for the ministerial position. What are your expectations? You've been through this before as a deputy. What are your expectations on that level?
Okay, so I am privileged to be nominated to a ministry where I've already worked before. I have been part of a team that has come up with policies, seen to the implementation of those policies, and has a continuous program, at least for the 2024 budget that was passed last year. So I have clarity on what we are expected to do within the period. Okay. And of course, by virtue of this nomination, the President of the Republic has personally communicated to me his expectations of the office. So I am not going to reinvent the wheel, especially some of the innovative media support programs that Honorable Opon Kroma initiated, like the Coordinated Mechanism on Safety of Journalists, the Media Capacity Enhancement Program, and other campaigns that we started at the ministry are things that I believe I should renew the energy and make sure we see to the continuous implementation of those. And of course, as Minister Designate, I am expected to give direction and guidance as to how we will assist the various ministries, departments, and agencies of government to communicate government's projects and policies. And by virtue of my experience at the Party Communications, Jubilee House Communications, and the Ministry of Information, and within the period getting the rare privilege to learn from the likes of Mr. Kweku Sechi, Ado Presidential Advisor, Honorable Oboshisai Kofi, Madam Elizabeth Ohene, Gabi Asare Ochidako, and the complete architecture of the government communication as we know it within the period. I believe I'm equipped and resourced enough with a very formidable team of counselors to help me put my best foot forward.
I see. Just a quick thought. What was it like working with Kojo Nkrumah?
Phenomenal. Yes, Kojo is selfless. He's very confident in his abilities. He was never threatened by the fact that I am a loud advocate, let me put it that way. He gave me all the opportunities to even come up with some laudable ideas that I believe could help enhance government communications at the ministry. And the existing programs, he assigned some to me, like he has always mentioned, of the minister's press briefing, which has about 4 components. One has to do with the updates on public health emergencies, including COVID. We had the update on specified entities in collaboration with the State Interest and Governance Authority. And we did the State of the Regions report with all the regional ministers. Over the period, we have also put together some media campaigns or media tours for some of these key sector heads and ministers to go around and talk about their mandates and their success stories.
So you feel the word you used was phenomenal. Some feel that the Kojo Nkrumah they knew, especially working in the media, right here, in these very walls, in these confines, was not the same Kojo Nkrumah after a while that they got to know in terms of many different dynamics and his defense sometimes of the indefensible. But one crucial point, many feel that, especially coming from the media fold, the media fraternity, he did not do enough to protect journalists. You've been following the Press Freedom Index. 2 years back to back, our scores have dwindled. I remember from last year, I think we actually made some marginal gains in Africa, but that's because there was a wide fall from many countries. And people feel he's not done enough to protect journalists. The number of cases that have come up about journalists being assaulted, killed, among others, have been horrifying. How do you respond to that? Has enough been done on that score?
That hasn't been the reflection of what has been happening at the ministry. And with your kind permission, I would like to point some incidents and how the Honorable Minister responded to those incidents. But before I go to that, let me remind you that in 2021, Reporters Without Borders, who come up with the Press Freedom Index, reviewed the indicators for the decision or positioning of a particular country in terms of performance. And you realize that when indicators including economic conditions and others were introduced, Ghana was doing so well. Ghana scored like an A. If you want to put any score above 70 as an A, when it comes to the legal regime and legislation, we did quite well. Even for safety of journalists, we were above average. The challenge we had within the instance is that when the new indicators were introduced, we were also facing with an era where we have migrated substantially over the past 3 decades from a system where we had only one TV station, one radio station with some form of censorship to a regime under the 1992 Constitution where we have proliferation of media houses, moving the number of registered entities for electronic media to over 700. In that instance, and some research from the School of Communication Studies and other stakeholders within the fraternity are saying that we have too many media houses that are not sustainable. If you look at the ones that are established, sometimes about a 30 collapse within 6 months. So we have not been able to score above 50 when it comes to economic condition.
And you're blaming the restructuring of the the scheme. That is what you're blaming for this. If you're a good scorer, if you're a good student, yes, no matter what parameters are used, you have to show that you are an excellent student, right? I don't think the other countries that are still at the top are complaining about the fact that some marginal parameters have been changed. And I remember Kojo Nkrumah made mention of this, but I'll go back to my point. If you're an excellent student, the fact that they add BODMAS or something else or quantitative bits to mathematics shouldn't make you fail, should it?
Let me mention something interesting to you. Not to blame them, but I'm saying that the review of the indicators, to include welfare and all that, is a good thing, but it has exposed the challenges that we have in media practice in Ghana. I believe it is public. The media space is largely privately owned. But that notwithstanding, I believe you agree with me that when it comes to the economic conditions and living conditions of media practitioners in general, there is more room for improvement. But comparatively, if you look at some countries like Burkina, you look at some countries like Niger or Guinea, even within West Africa sub-region, some of the countries that perform better than us. Because I remember when the first scoring under the new indicators came, there was a stakeholder meeting for us to look at how we can deal with the situation. You have Niger with about 15 radio and TV stations nationwide. You have Guinea with 8
So the problem
stations.
is the proliferation of media entities?
So it is part of it, because it is the regime that is operating in Ghana in general. It's been admitted. Quite recently, CDD came up with some research findings. We were all at Movenpick to listen and make contributions. And across board, including the deputy ranking member for the Communications Committee in Parliament, there were proposals that in some instances, the regime that we are practicing is not sustainable. So it is part of it, but I'm not saying it's the only issue. There's been instances where complaints of threats or actual use of force on journalists have come up. And if you will bear me out,
if I might add, within the last few years, the numbers have been pretty high, which I'm sure you're aware of, including the instances where politically aligned people have walked into radio and TV stations, assaulted people. I remember this way from the times when, what's that reverend's name? I don't know. I'll just try to recall his name. I think my crew will help me remember his name. He kept, up with some of these assaults, and because he was seen to be very aligned to the MPP and to the president, these went on. I believe it got to a head at some point. He was apprehended once, and that was it. But this was a man who had led people, armed people, at a point, if I recall, to go to a media entity. I say this because I sit here. Okay. And we've had people, you remember the latest UTV one, the Cape FM. I mean, it's becoming a real problem.
I was coming to that.
Real problem.
I was coming to that. We have been following even the research findings by Media Foundation for West Africa. When they have the engagements, we go and sit in. And my problem is that we have a general problem of how people respond to dissent, especially when it comes to publications. Whether they are false news, whether they are misinformation, whether they are defamatory. If you look at the incidents, you will not even
so the
put
person,
the political actors
my able producer has reminded me, it was Owusu Bempah.
Oh, okay.
Owusu Bempah I was referencing. That.
So my point is that we follow the research. And if you look at the incidents, you will not even rank political actors as one. It spans from security agencies to, of course, political actors. It could be traditional and religious authority. It could be ordinary Ghanaians. It could be incidents as a sports stadium. We have a general misunderstanding or lack of appreciation of the independence of the journalists and their freedom to report what they have seen and how they should go about it. And I think in that instance, we have unanimously come around the table and say, one, we agree to prosecution and pursuit of justice for victims of assaults. Two, there is the need for a collective action when it comes to sensitization. Three, even the NMC, the GJA, and other people have also come to the agreement that sometimes issues of ethics and professionalism and how even training to how to sense risk, how to act during risk, how to assess some of these situations have come up. But it appears when it is not the politician, then it is not an important conversation. But we at the Ministry of Information have remained allies to stakeholders within the space. And let me give you 3 key instances. If you would remember, in the case that you referred to at UTV, it was the Minister for Information who reported to the police, issued a statement, read out immediately to the production team and the host they mentioned on air in course of the program. In the case of Benya FM in Central,
from what I hear, he was reached out to, and then that happened. And I don't dispute that because I'm fully aware of that. But there have been instances where it's not been so forthcoming, and even statements from your ministry under the leadership of Kojo Nkrumah, where it's even been suggested that we too, in some way, are liable in a way. It's not to say that. I wish I had some of those statements to express to you properly. You must be aware of them. It's not about the professionalism of the work, but almost as though we ought to know better in certain instances. The media is free. Yes, freedom has its own. Your freedom ends where someone else's freedom begins. But if you're simply doing your job, and then like what we saw with, and that's purported because the journalist is in the process of proving, the matter I know has gone to the MPP's, is it the NEC, the National Executive Council? I saw recently a statement, Farouk Aliu Mahama, Yendi, and the purported assault of a City FM journalist and all of that. All those dynamics paint a certain picture, and it's injuring the country. So you were making a point about some of the work you
so interestingly, let me tell you something. I mentioned 3 instances, Adan, Benya, UTV, where the ministry was even involved in assisting with investigation, looking for perpetrators, reaching out to the district police commanders to make sure on our account, to assure them that we are not interested in shielding anybody. And if because of our office, they will think twice before pursuing prosecution, they have our full support. In this specific instance, with Farouk's case, because he's in court, I am a bit constrained as a lawyer to go into the details. But you remember there was this issue about the GJ's announcement about a journalist being assaulted at a vetting during a vetting process in Central Region, and they mentioned that
is it the Cape FM one you're referencing?
Yes, right. And some of the people who were part of it were wearing Honorable Howard Kumsin's t-shirt. Indeed. Let me inform you that as at yesterday, the minister herself, myself, we sent a delegation, met the full complement of GJA, GIBA, Media Foundation of West Africa, all the key agencies so that we can assist with the investigation. So the impression as if under Kojo's leadership or with my assistants, we have not been pursuing actions.
I don't think I suggested that you hadn't. I just suggested, in fact, when I made mention of Kojo, I said people felt he had not done enough.
Okay.
And I said that I would even be willing to pardon you on certain grounds, but for him, because he comes from the fold, people hold him to higher standards in dealing with such issues. But moving forward then, there are other issues. And don't worry, we'll come back to the reshuffle and who gets what and everything we expect of you. But you look at the media dynamics. There have been times when some media entities have been shut down and some have felt they were politically motivated. And when you look at the fine print, you might want to think along those lines. At a certain point, we all know the Radio Golds, the XYZs back then, and everything that happened, the Power FMs. But at the same time, I do agree that a lot of the media entities we have, sometimes you look at TV, watch what an entity is showing, and even the bit that has become occultism or juju and all of that, money making, money, whatever. And then you also listen to some of the stations. It is obvious something is not right, but they're all running. Are those the entities you're speaking of that must go? And what are the mechanisms?
Not necessarily. We are not talking about letting go of any entity. I'm saying that there were proposals at the CDD events that some must do if it has to take measures or other agreements to make them sustainable.
Right.
The Minister for Information, or former Minister for Information, now Minister for Works and Housing designated my boss, Honorable Kojo.
But when you just called him the former Minister for Information, he's still at post, right?
Yes.
Is he not still at post?
You know, the president will do appointments and then before putting them in another place.
Right.
So we are still
processing.
Yes, we are in the transition phase. Right. But the minister lobbied with the assistance of the President of the Republic to get the head office of International Fund for Public Interest Media, IFIM, to be situated in Ghana, because we believe sustainability and the viability of media houses are important to improving our indicators. And we believe that if we are the hosts and they are operating here, issues about funding support for media houses, operational support, even salary payment support, we will be in the position to add our voices and advocate for such assistance to the media houses. So we do not by any measure seek to shut some up, close some down, or stop any media house whatsoever from operating. But if you can improve the quality of operations, then of course, I know our performances will get better. That being said...
But if these media houses are not meeting the standards, and I do not want to think that of the proliferation, all of them, because there are times when you've spoken about some of what they should be paying that they are not paying, some that are putting out content that is not. So are we saying all of them are, and we're going to let them be? Is that the...
That is why we are working so hard to get the broadcasting bill passed.
Right.
If you look at the constitutional provisions and the legal regime that we have operated over the period, there were a lot of loopholes. Let me put it that way, because the National Media Constitution National Media Commission, by virtue of the 1992 Constitution, is the regulator of content.
Right.
The National Communications Authority is the regulator of spectrum.
Yeah.
Although under the fundamental freedoms, free press is guaranteed. But that unfettered right or freedom comes with the fact that when it comes to the electronic space, we look at the spectrum as a resource, a limited resource. And you would need a regulator like the NCA to look at what is available, that there are no breaches, people are not interrupting with your broadcasts and all that. But because of the way they run, if there is no seamless conversation or interaction between NMC, who is the regulator of content, and NCA, who is the regulator of spectrum, NCA can have the best monitoring rooms, seeing all that is happening on TV and everything. But if they are not clothed with the powers to say, I am stopping you because you are showing this and that, and they don't have the support of the NMC, it will be almost impossible. So that is why they are among the key stakeholders that we are dealing with, looking at how we can facilitate the passage of the broadcasting bill. If quite recently, if you followed the activities of the Ministry of Information, we have done stakeholder engagements on the media support programs. We have done engagements on the misinformation campaign. We have done engagements on even how the agencies and stakeholders who have regulatory powers will be able to work together. And we were at Alisa quite recently with Raymond as the moderator, with Facebook, other people, the Parliamentary Select Committee, making inputs as to how we can improve upon the legislative framework that we work within currently.
Let's talk about this interesting bit. It is said that 1 in 3, or even half in some instances, of media entities are owned by politicians or political actors or people close to people who walk the corridors of power. Many reports have pointed to the fact that that in itself is a major problem. If you have a lot of media houses dominated by the NDC and the NPP, what it means is that sometimes you will get information skewed in a certain way. It happens in some of the newspapers as well. I will not mention any names, but you can guarantee that if you pick newspaper X or Y or Z, they are likely, same story, to spin it in this direction, and if you pick newspaper A, B, C, it's likely to be spun in another direction, and you will be spot on 9 out of 10 times. How are we dealing with that situation?
It's a
First of all, do you acknowledge it's a problem?
Oh, yes,
and
yes.
How
yes.
are we doing?
Through our engagements, our recent engagements, it has come up strongly. And we have so many sentiments to express as to the quality of work based on media ownership. But that will not override their right to free media or free press.
Right.
So until you get everybody agreeing that this is a problem, so we cannot stop the NMC from giving licenses to people who qualify and have applied and have capacity to set up the infrastructural requirements to run a media house. If there is the agreement from key stakeholders that something should be done about it, then the amendments that are happening within the draft of the broadcasting bill would take into account some of these sentiments, and we would have it codified in whatever laws we are about to pass. Because at the moment, if from the goodness of your heart, or based on our individual sentiments, or the sentiments of Honorable Kojo Nkrumah, you say, okay, let us reduce the number of media houses, let's stop issuing licenses, let's put a ban on this. The same media houses and platforms will come here shouting that they want to gag us, they are not giving us.
I don't think, because media houses, as long as I've been in this space and from the number of people I've engaged, it's not about, don't gag, don't muzzle, don't try to force media houses out or gag them. But at the same time, media practitioners have said that there ought to be some sanity. I think there's always been an agreement on that, because we ourselves sometimes look at content and we ask ourselves, okay, so this one is also running, but this content vis-a-vis, typical example, sometimes you would have some of them showing content that is adult content during certain periods within the day. And you know that at that time, there could likely be children at home and all of that. Those dynamics, obviously, and then you ask yourself, okay, so the NMC, the National Media Commission, which is supposed to regulate some of that, the content, what are they doing? Are they aware these entities exist? And that's just the tip of the iceberg. So that is the line. It's not about general media, but some of these entities you see and you get worried.
Yes, so within the mandate of the Ministry of Information, we appreciate some of the concerns that you have raised, but we also have to put it on the table that in the operations of the National Media Commission, we do not interfere in the operational and administrative decisions. All their regulatory decisions within the period. That is why we saw the need to help build capacity within the space and enlighten people through the media capacity enhancement program. And in doing so, we came up with a working committee chaired by Professor Kwame Nakwansa of UNIMAC. And last month, the second cohort graduated. If you remember, we had the first cohort in Kumasi, which was opened by Otumfo Osetu to the second, the Asantehene. In March, we have the third cohort at UNIMAC Jolu campus again. So over the period, we think that, first of all, it's a fact that not everybody within the media space had the benefit of going through journalism school. Some are operating based on passion, based on raw talent, based on opportunity or availability. In so doing, the person may be as eloquent as they come, but in terms of ethics, in terms of the legal requirements, in terms of technical issues, they may not be as equipped. We have created this opportunity so that if they go through the program and acquire certificate from UNIMAC, the standards will be raised, they will be further equipped to do the right thing. Okay. So from our part, that is what, under the leadership of Honorable Kojo Nkrumah, we've started, and after 2 cohorts and going into the 3rd cohort, we are still pursuing.
Okay. I will quickly move on to other issues. I'll come back here because there are still the issues of the RTI and challenges and all that. But the final point, because of that meeting, you made mention of GBA and other entities. The GJA's plan now, with the president focusing on, well, not focusing, but bringing up blackouts, for example. So the likes of Mevzawa Kumsin, Farouk Aliyu Mahama, and others have come up. But what do you make of that strategy? I've heard Mr. Ayeboafo speak on it. I've heard others also root for it. What is your position on that?
It's their prerogative as GJA to take decisions which they believe will protect the membership of GJA. That being said, my position has been that although you have the right, looking at the media landscape that we have in Ghana, would it be the most effective tool? That answer is maybe I will get it from the GJA in our subsequent interactions. Because you may put a blackout on somebody, but a privately owned media house, and we know that we still have journalists in the country who do not have affiliation to any association. They will still go ahead to do publications, to do what they want. So the best case scenario is that we sit at the table, find lasting solution. If it's justice we are seeking, we get the support of the executive or the executive arm of government. We push the security agencies to facilitate the investigations and also get GJA and the allies to come to the table to say, you know what, we want the same thing. We are pursuing the same course. So what is the best case scenario in this instance? And remember, every single case of infringement is different. And sometimes the circumstances are also different.
Right.
So if we don't look at the nuances and look at how we are rehabilitating the victim, how we are pursuing prosecution collectively, and we say, okay, we are that side, you are that side, do it and let's see. We know how the justice system works in this country. And it's not even with just criminal prosecution. Sometimes you can be pursuing the case in courts. They have to look at procedure and take their time to make sure justice is served. It can be a year, 2, 3, 4, so on and so forth. There are cases that are even over 20 years in the country. Right. But in the meantime, we want to come together, sit, look at how we are rehabilitating victims, giving them the assurances that, no, we do not support this. You should have the confidence to go back to your work whilst we are collectively assisting to make sure we prosecute. Right. But remember that in the past, there has also been instances where people have mentioned incidents that turned out not to be true.
Right.
And when that happens, you need to engage so that we can validate each case on its merits. And that is why the ministry, in collaboration with NMC, came up with the coordinated mechanism on the safety of journalists, so that when there is an incident and you are not confident enough to report on your own, you will get the full complement of the committee set up by the NMC to make sure they assist you to go through the processes.
And I just wanted to piggyback on that and go to some of the matters we've already discussed. But in respect of the reshuffle, it's really good to have you here because I believe we are the first entity to have any proper conversation with you since you became minister designate. On the back of all these that we've discussed, and there'll be more to come, what then can we expect from you as minister? I want to believe you will sail through. For some of us who support women, it is our hope that you do sail through. But what then specifically will you do in that position? What can we expect from you at the helm of affairs?
Okay, before I respond to that, let me add that I don't support politicians boycotting media houses because of their content. If for anything,
you don't support politicians boycotting media houses?
Yes.
Right. Okay, you have to catch your breath right there. And that's an interesting point, a very interesting one to make.
And in that same breath, I think together with GJA, beyond the blacklisting and all that, we can explore other more effective avenues in seeking compliance and redress for those who are affected in some of these instances.
Okay. Right.
Back to your question. Expectations, as I mentioned, I have been part and parcel of the current regime in terms of how we are managing the information sector, the policy directions. So I have clarity that, God willing, if I get the confirmation of Parliament, Inshallah, I will get to continue some of our legacy projects that we have already.
Some of those you've already mentioned, right?
Some of those I have already mentioned. I am also aware that we are within an election period. And within the mandate of President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, there are so many projects that we have started that are now completed, that are coming up. I believe, especially like railway sector, other sectors, you've seen snippets of completed and yet to be commissioned projects. I believe it is our prerogative to assist the source or the implementing ministries to come up with government communication plans that will help educate Ghanaians and also explain to them government's choices of policy direction, projects that we started, why we started them, completion, and the social impact that those projects will have in the country. So more advocacy, and making myself more accessible to the media so that if they have any questions, we won't leave vacuum for misinformation, but will adequately communicate the position of government.
Now, some have spoken about time. The question is, will you have enough time to be able to do anything meaningful between now and the end of this administration's tenure? Technically, it's maybe around March, thereabouts, that you probably would start having a full hands on deck to start working. Between March and November, thereabouts, it's practically the electoral season. So do you think there's enough time to make anything of this position that has been thrust upon you?
I trust in the judgment of His Excellency the President, who by our Constitution has the prerogative or has the vested executive power, and at any point in time he thinks there is a need to make certain changes to re-energize the system for whatever reason whatsoever, because the Constitution does not require him to tell us why. I can only speak for myself what he expects from me. And I believe within the period there is so much we can do. Do not also forget that in most instances we are talking about appointees who have either served as deputy ministers in those sectors, or two, who have served on the Parliamentary Select Committee that have oversight responsibility over those ministries, or in a way or the other, who have had the benefits to follow the activities or have the academic qualification to work within those spaces. And because it is the same government in terms of handing over, in terms of transitioning, I believe it will be as seamless as possible for us to continue the programs and projects of government. So I'm confident that what is expected of us within the period will be delivered.
Right. That's a tactful way of going about it. The president and his prerogative. I was actually focusing more on what you would do, but it's all right. Government, there's been a shake-up of government, and crucial, everyone has been talking about Ken Ofori-Atta, now a special investment envoy, senior advisor, and all of that. Some have said he's even more powerful now than he would have been at the Ministry of Finance. The Franklin Kujos, the Dr. Kojo Pumpunis of the CDD, the Mary Ades and others, Professor Ali Duseidu, all of them have been pointing to that fact. There's also been, there have been a number of interesting names, Dakwa Newman for gender, which again is a bonus with more women in such positions. Henry Quartey moving to Interior, among others. This new team, what do you think it will do? What some have said that, look, we're under an IMF program, contracts have been signed, deals have been struck. There's practically nothing that can be done. But for you, what do you see from where you sit with this new group, including you, who are now on board?
I am excited, and I believe the rest are. With regards to Honorable Ken Ofori-Atta and his powers, I would advise that we don't go into the speculations. You know, Ghana is one country where we have one coach on the field, and we have about 31 million
others.
coaches out there with all sorts of conspiracy theories and all sorts of tactics, and people who have not hit the ball before will be telling you about formation 4-4-2 and so on and so forth. So please,
but it's also because the people have become very, very, I wouldn't say skeptical, but on the back of the political gymnastics that our politicians play with us, people have become inured to trickery and treachery, and so they want to train their eyes on the ball, wouldn't you say? More discernment.
No, I don't think so.
You think so?
I cannot.
So you don't think Ghanaians have become more discerning?
Of course, Ghanaians have always been discerning. I mean, but on a lighter note, there are times that so many issues have come up. People have speculated, and then it turned out not to be true. So especially for those of us with bigger platforms, we bear a bigger or higher responsibility to make sure we also don't speculate, but limit to what is within our knowledge and belief. So I can't speculate, but I am confident that at the Ministry of Information, we are equipped. It's the same team throughout. We still have our government spokespersons and the full complement of the ministries, agencies, and staff. And it is only because the expertise of Honorable Kojo Nkrumah is needed elsewhere that the president has sent him to execute the mandate there. But we will hold the fort to the best of our ability and make sure the vision of the president of the republic is executed to perfection.
I have an interesting question for you.
Okay.
Are you going to miss him, Kojo Nkrumah?
Oh, definitely, I will. I went to, Kojo is somebody that I greatly admired a long time ago. I have done so many things in my lifetime that maybe because of how reserved I am, people don't know about it. I was with a brother, Kofi Sefa Bonsu, who is into sound and camera. He's quite well known. He's done production for over 2 decades. And I used to hold his cameras, accompany him to sets. I remember one particular instance in 2010 or 2011, MTN was shooting a commercial at East Legon. And Jessica Saforo and Honorable Kojo Nkrumah were supposed to be part of that campaign with, is it just one gentleman, Bentum, I've forgotten the first name, part of the crew as well. So I was somehow, associated with production, just assisting. And then I had another former boss, Egaga Ebiko, who was also into production. When Multi TV started, she was into operations, and we did a lot of production for TV3 as well, from 2007 to 2008, when they were shooting the Darling, Look Smart Quiz and Beauty Diaries. So it was from admiration, someone I was eager to meet. I wouldn't mind holding the clothes and helping them on set. And he became a brother. So when I got the opportunity to come and work at the ministry, it was so comfortable because we knew each other, we respected each other.
So the rapport was there?
Oh, absolutely. And he was personally interested in my growth. And if there were instances that I was holding back, he would give me the assurances that I think you can do more than you think. I believe in your capacity. So I am eternally grateful to him. And his predecessor as well, Dr. Mustafa Hamid. I was his secretary at Dankwa Institute when he became the executive director.
These are cobwebs you are bringing out that we didn't know.
He has taught me. I've learned from him. He has built me. They have, and all the people I mentioned earlier, they have personally invested in my growth, encouraged me to pursue capacity building in ways that I cannot express. So I'm riding on all those big shoulders to make sure I am able to meet whatever standards exist at the ministry.
My very able producer, Eko, he keeps sending me information today. So is it Timothy Bentum?
Yes.
Timothy.
Yes.
Right. We've spoken about media freedom and the dynamics in there. I just want a brief, and I told you I would go back to it. RTI, right to information.
Yeah.
We have it now, but ISA rights, it's like a pipeline that has been blocked. You go to a certain extent, and then they tell you, thus far and no farther. Of course, there are stipulations about what you must do But a lot of the time, whether it's the Ghana Airports Company Limited and our approach to getting information about Frontiers healthcare services, or about the fourth estate trying to get information from the GRA and the Finance Ministry, sometimes all you will get is a ping pong. They throw you here, then this one throws you there, then maybe the RTI Commission will come and find, case closed. You don't get the information. What do you make of that, and what will be your approach in making our state institutions more responsive to the law?
Okay, so on the RTI, quite recently, we've been meeting the commission, and even journalists like my good brother Samson Ladia Yenini, who were advocates for the passage of the RTI to see how best we can work within the framework of the law. But to start with, let me commend the Access to Information Division of the Information Services Department. They are tasked with the responsibility to recruit, train, and deploy RTI officers to the various MDAs. They are tasked with the responsibility to do the monitoring and analyze the data and come up with the reports. That being said, we have the RTI Commission, that is more or less the regulatory framework running RTI. And under the law, we have this appellate framework whereby if you go to an agency and demand information from an RTI officer or designated officer, and they refuse, the institution refuses to give or provide such information, you can appeal or petition the commission for them to pursue it.
And we've gone down that route.
Yes, failure of which you can go to the High Court to pursue for them to insist that they provide that information. That being said, there has been several instances where successfully people have applied and gotten information. Now, the challenge that we have within the
sometimes it's like pulling hair out of your nostrils.
Exactly. We are building a new system that is not known to the public service of the country. And the RTI applies to public organizations and organizations that are operating or collecting public funds. So they can also be private organizations. So imagine if there is inadequate sensitization and you go to one of the popular banks that you are coming to request for data and all that, if they are not exempt, if people don't understand, there will be some level of resistance. But now what is also complementing the implementation of RTI is that there is digitization of public records and data at various institutions. So those who are up to date are able to quickly go through their systems and provide information. I mean, look at an institution like DVLA that has hundreds of thousands of records of vehicles registered from the 1980s. If they have old documents, their offices, they don't have places to keep the documents. They'll go to Prad. Imagine you put in an RTI request and you require some information within 40 days. You will write to them, they will say, we don't have it. When we went to the box, the file was not there. Okay, we are going to archives, public archives. Okay, when we went, they said they won't find it. You need the information, and the interpretation could also be that they have it, but they don't want to give it to me. But with the appellate framework...
But sometimes with, and I've personally been involved at some point, sometimes with the posturing of these institutions, it is clear they don't want to give you the information because of whatever will be exposed from there. I mean, let's not even, sometimes...
So we have to insist, and we have to use the other framework to make sure the court forces them to give it. And there's been instances where there's been fines. But I'm saying that where it is possible to get the information, the court will instruct that they have to give it to you at all costs.
All right. I have some messages coming through. Irene Africanus Mensa says, I love Fati so much. She deserves her new appointment. Congratulations, dear. Okay. And then Emmanuel Tetekwao says, what a super intelligent, smart, and eloquent young lady we have in the Honorable Fatimatu Abubakar. So you have a lot of fans watching us this morning. There are two little bits I want to run by you right before we go in about some 2 minutes. Good governance issues. Let's talk about the railway sector, the economy. I mean, there have been moves. You've spoken about moves in recent times. I know we're getting some trains from Poland and all of that. Can you give us an update on that?
Okay, first of all, you know, there was an already an existing contract with Afcons or Shalonji Shaponji from India to construct the Tema-Akosombo railway line. Under this government, they reviewed the contract to increase it and also to pay for it to be extended all the way to Mpakadan. In fact, the original plan to have a railway line from Tema-Akosombo did not include an overbridge on the Volta River, yes. And I heard that from the CEO of the constructing company himself. I watched the documentary and he said the review was to add on a bridge and also to extend it so that we can have a 100-kilometer line from Tema to Mpakadan. It's a wonderful project because first of all, if it will reduce travel time, if it will help facilitate carting goods and all that, Accra is getting choked. A lot of people with some of those infrastructure can live far away and have the confidence that I'll be able to commute in and out as and when I'm required to do so. So by the grace of God, government has procured and have built 12 units under the Railway Development Authority and Ministry for Railways. And they've been carrying us along through the engineering and shipping and all that. And as mentioned earlier, we are expecting that by the end of this month, the first batch should be on their way to Ghana. Okay. And I won't take the wind out of their sail. The Ministry of Railway has done such a fantastic job. And they should have the comfort of breaking the news and communicating to the public on some of the good things that they have done. Right. The vision of the government is not just for the Tema Mpakadan project. There is a larger plan to extend all the way to the north through the Eastern Corridor to make sure transporting goods and services, reaching out at some point in time even to our landlocked neighbors will be easier. And the pressure on the roads will also reduce because all these huge trucks going to our neighboring landlocked countries all the time and the pressure they put on our public roads. I said that if we had alternative means of transport, it will go a long way to help us. So Ghanaians are excited, and I am as well, and I believe when they tag down, and I may be one of the first people to board the coach, because I'll be happy to join the team that will be doing the testing.
In some 30 seconds, I just want a response on this. You're a mother to many. Absolutely. And there are many people who call you mother. Just this morning, we were discussing the school feeding program based on a story in the papers. And we had a call recently from some specific school, and it's something that we've heard in other schools, where, for example, they are serving porridge, and students are expected to bring their own sugar and bread, right? This does not lie directly within your purview. It's in education. But what do you think? How much more do you think we can do to make our school feeding program better under free SHS?
The school feeding program is not under the free SHS. It's a separate
it's a general
program for the basic schools.
Education. Right.
And then we have the feeding component of the free SHS for day students, and of course the entire feeding framework under the boarding schools under the free SHS. But with respect to the school feeding program, you would remember that when this government came into office, the coverage was quite limited, about some 1.6 million beneficiaries. That number has quickly doubled, and we are talking about over 11,000 caterers. The challenge has also been that across the country, of course, you have the regional coordinators and the district coordinators, but we are talking of over 10,000 schools across the countries. So when people claim that they have cooked, and then there is
they claim they have cooked.
Oh yes, and you don't get the validation process right. You may be paying people assuming that they are doing the work, but maybe it is not going as planned.
Right.
Let me also acknowledge that, of course, the allocation to the school feeding program is not as we would have expected it to be. Yeah. In 2016, 2017, it was 80 pesos per child. Yeah. Under this government, it has been moved to 1 cedi, 20 pesos. And I remember the last time we had a media encounter with Honorable Lariba, she assured us that she was pushing so hard to increase that quota so that it will also improve the quality of meals. But you know, we are asking for all of these things from the same national cake. to do the roads, to do the hospitals, to take care of the students, to pay for education of doctors who are seeking to be surgeons.
But we can still do it better.
So of course, we are all pursuing that.
Right.
If the government has the muscle to carry additional budget into that, I don't think His Excellency, the President, will hesitate to do so.
It's been refreshing having you join us in the studio for a conversation.
Ben, thanks for having me.
The privilege of coming here, and maybe in further conversations at some point in the future, we'll drill down into other issues. But thank you. Thank you
so much for having me. And I hope this is a see you again, not a goodbye. I'll be excited.
As for us, our doors are open.
Time for us to talk. As I hope to operate an open door policy, either for interviews at the ministry or if I'm required to come to the studio. If I have the information, it shall be delivered to you.
All right. And that is the Information Minister Designate, Fatih Abubakar, and she's joined the conversation with us this morning. Our hope and prayers are with her, and in the next few months, we'll see what she delivers as she now takes over as Minister of Information. But stay with us.
Welcome back on the AM show. That was Benjamin Akakpo with his blunt thoughts, raw and diluted. I think Benjamin will make a great president, but he said he doesn't have any political ambitions. But you listen to the current vice president and flag bearer of the New Patriotic Party for the 2024 elections on his plan for the creative arts industry should he be voted into power. This morning, we want to get into this plan, dissect, bisect, and see if really it is feasible and if this is what the industry needs. I'm joined in the studio by Kojo Preko Dankwa, who is convener of the Foundation for Concerned Arts Professionals. It's an honor to have a chat with you in the studio. Thank you so much for joining us. And Robert Clark, who's also a creative entrepreneur. Good morning to you, gentlemen.
Good morning. How you doing?
I'm okay. How are you?
We're okay. Not bad.
Yeah,
looking good.
Thank you. The key players of the industry. I'm sure you've chanced on the videos or read excerpts of what Dr. Bawumia said his plans will be should he be voted into power. He talks about tax incentives, creating or providing streaming platforms. Let's start by picking your thoughts on what you think overall. And it's interesting. I was saying that out of the 77-page document or speech, it was just about 3 or 4 paragraphs that was dedicated to the creative arts industry. So let's begin by picking your thoughts. What's your overall opinion on Dr. Bawumia's plan for the creative arts industry? Let me start with you.
Well, I think that overall, I think it is nothing new. Whatever he, put out there has already been said by his own party and himself over and over again from 2016 down to 2020. He hasn't really said anything that is really convincing and new. For me, it's a sampling of his own speeches that he's done and comments that is coming. But I don't fault him, Dr. Bawumia. Much respect to him. I think that the people I really would want to fault is the chameleons. I call them the chameleons, who have really changed from their old self into a new self and really giving him bad ideas. That's what I would say. I know you're going to ask me who are the chameleons. Definitely, I know you're going to ask me.
Yeah.
And I'll mention names. You remember once upon a time we had a group called Creative Arts for Change that was fully dedicated to the driver. When I say the driver, I'm talking about Nanado. When his presidential ambition was on. I could mention names like Bandex, I could mention names like Marco Preku Mante, Socre Safo, Dada KD and the rest, Freche Mensa and the rest. All of them were dedicated. And these same people sat down and gave us that Dios 2016 manifesto. And the same people sat down again and gave us the 2020 manifesto. Today, the same people have transformed again and bringing us a new name called Creative Art for Development, with its convener being Socre Safo, who is also a member of the Creative Art for Change. Okay, so people like that, people of that nature, I want to ask myself, what advice are they really going to give Dr. Bawumia to really see the vision clear when it comes to creative art. I think that it is not him as in doctor, but I think that he needs to really look at the people who are really giving him advice or giving him what he thinks the creative art people need. It is the same people that gave his driver the same info. If he is the mate and he's following, he doesn't want to follow what the driver is doing, then I'm urging him to really look into the people who have come up now and calling themselves the new people, wanting to give him a new vision for the creative art industry. And that's the more reason why I'm saying that whatever he said is nothing new. It is visionless. It doesn't give anything to us because we have seen it, we have heard it from 2016 up until now, and nothing has transpired.
That's an interesting opinion, talking about the people behind him. So it means that he has some backing. He's probably doing some research or receiving advice. And that is what he's basing his plans on. But I'll come back to you. Let me take your thoughts on the overall impression on what Dr. Bawumia has outlined for the industry.
To put things into perspective, if you don't mind, because the areas are just 4 specific points.
Yes.
It would be nice if you could read these 4 points and then we can speak to it. So that it doesn't feel like, words over something that people cannot connect with.
First he talked about tax incentives. He says that he's going to give film producers and musicians a break when it comes to taxes to incentivize their work and potentially lower production costs when it comes to films and music. He says he wants to create a digital platform. That is point number 2. He's committed to creating digital and streaming platforms for Ghanaian artists, and this could provide wider distribution of the product. He also talked about boosting tourism. He says that his desire is to enhance the year of return, December in Ghana, beyond the return, and to focus on attracting more tourists, potentially investors for our artists and the entire industry. And then he also talked about streamlining visas, because most of our artists here, when they get invited to perform on global stages or international platforms, they have issues with visa. Case in point, Blacko had this issue severally. Before he got into management, he couldn't go out, he couldn't get visas to do that. So these are the 4 points: tax incentives, digital platforms, boosting tourism, and streamlining visas.
Okay, so the streamlining visa, I'm not too sure. I thought it was visa for people coming here.
Okay.
I'm not too sure about
both ways. So he says it comes after they'll do security check. For instance, if you're an artist and you want to go out and perform, or you've been invited to perform somewhere, government will aid you to acquire visa based on security checks and then give you that visa so you can go out and do your job.
Okay, so fair enough. So 4 strong points clearly laid out. So the first, let me start with the first one. I think it's extremely commendable. The first one has to do with the year of return. And year of return beyond the return. And the fact that, it started off and there has been a strategy to ensure that it's still happening. Because I think, 2019, year of return, and then they went to beyond the return. And the beyond the return activities is part of the thing that is actually feeding off the December and GH activities. Now, there were activities already happening in December, but the fact that you've been able to put a name to it, brand it, and project it is sweet, it's beautiful, and it's lovely. That particular activity for me is an example of you pursuing one particular project that has the ability to be able to impact the economy completely. Look at, in terms of GDP contribution right now, top 3. You have the tourism in that particular segment as a contributor, which means that there's something good happening in that particular space. Everybody within the arts is happy when it comes to that particular.
Everybody is happy
with December and GH, year of return, on the benefits that it comes with, because it's a very good thing that has been done. So when he says he would like to continue that, I'm happy, which means that something has happened, it is good, and you would like to, continue making sure that the benefit we are receiving from that particular phase, you want to be able to get that. Just yesterday, I was looking at some of the index about safety, the safety rates in terms of the various countries, and I think this is Ghana is number 2. I have to check that. If Ghana is number 2, I remember IGP engaging people last year. I was part of a few of the sessions about what they could do to ensure that the place was going to be very safe as we were going to get more people to come to the country. So it's that one activity, and all of these wings are protecting it and making sure that it's going on well. So I like whatever is coming out of that. Now, that's the spirit of continuity, and I like that. and it was not even actually part of the manifesto, but it's something that you can clearly talk about. Now, if you go to the rest, the three, the tax incentives, the e-visa, and then the digital platforms. So the digital platform, I'll come to that, but you realize that the e-visa is directly connected to the year of return because you want people to be able to come in. You understand? So the e-visa is connected to the year of return component. So I'll just bunch them together because at the end of the day, really, you're just facilitating people visiting and it's very necessary. The only thing is that we're just chatting and then I think the National Tourism Authority are embarking on that, or it's said that they're embarking on that in the first quarter of the year. So which means it's something that is already happening. So if it's something that is already happening, then I'm not sure about it being a vision. You understand? That's one.
I see the point you're trying to make.
Good. Now, on the tax incentives bit, again, if you look into it, there are certain things already in place that you would want to ask why. Because when it comes to the film, the NFA,
the National Film Authority,
yes, they have something with the film fund that is also pending. Unless we are saying that that particular phase will not be completed this year. But if it's going to be completed this year, then it doesn't fall into what's supposed to happen the following year. If it's dealt with, then fine. If it's not dealt with, then what it means is that it's an activity you can pursue the following year. But then again, when you take the entire film industry, the film producers is just one component of the film industry. Would have loved something that was a bit broader. You understand? So yes, it's a good
element. They've made
promises
too. They've talked about building amphitheaters.
Yeah, we'll come to that. We'll come to that. Now the last one is the tax incentives. Very necessary, and would like to have that. And these conversations have been ongoing. I think that's the reason why he's saying that it feels like there's nothing new. So in the spirit of so if you look at what we have there, you realize that there are things already happening in the space, and would like to have more. Now we have, for me, somebody's going to become a president anyways. Whatever party you are, engage the stakeholders so that we can get information, so that you can use that to develop our industry. And it's not too late, regardless of what has been shared. I just think that it's not enough. Now, let me just go back to this. The MPP's 2020 manifesto.
Yeah.
Here it says that, I'm just reading 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'll just read like 2 of them. We'll set up the Creative Arts Fund in support of artists. That one, what's happening to it? Why am I asking what's happening to it? Year of return was so good, and they saw the need to be able to continue. So
but you keep saying year of return was so good and it's been beneficial, and now you would even comment that he wants to continue this. But some would argue that the benefits does not come to the populace. It's just a few people in the family and friends of those in power who have become agencies who directly benefit from bringing these people into the country. So the actual Ghanaian does not actually benefit from all these foreigners coming to the country when it comes to tourism.
I think that you need to understand what it means when people are coming to a country and how it cascades into economic activity. So somebody comes into the country, the first thing is they'll have to pay. So if you fly into the country, money goes to, revenue is received because you went through the airport, right? Then you have taxi drivers. Uber, whatsoever, all of them, boats, they are, there's money coming to their pockets because once they are here, they have to take rides.
That's just
I'm coming. Then we have food, they purchase. Then there are hotel lodgings, the various nightclubs they visit, all of that. Now, this is not agricultural sector. We are discussing tourism and its benefits, so we can't say it has to affect everybody. It affects the people in that particular sector, and that's why we are here. So that is one side. Now let's get to the event section. The people organizing the events, when you want to put up an event, the stage, light, sound, and all the technicians that are supposed to be in that particular space, the insurance you are supposed to get, the venue you are supposed to pay for, the advertising you do which comes to your platform because they have to advertise on radio, the people who do the voiceover, like everything. So all I'm trying to say is that there's something in that particular space, and I like the fact that they are continuing. So I'm only hoping that in the spirit of continuity, I was hoping that some of the things that are pending, that are very critical to the industry, will become like some of the elements of the forefront where they acknowledge that, these have not been accomplished, and let us understand the reason why these things have not been accomplished and give us the vision for where you want to take us to. You understand what I'm saying? So for me, I think that at the end of the day, you know, because we still have we built a digital platform for artists to make their products available to the market. This was in 2020. It's there, you understand? And we're still discussing that now. So it's a bit some way, like what happened? Why didn't we do it? And why are we so? Because if it's being said now, then it's almost as if, why? So it's not going to happen? So then the promise, you know, so those are some of the things. We'll construct one of the biggest convention and exhibition centers in the world at the Ghana Trade Fair company site. What happened to that particular space? And then the various promises with respect to the amphitheaters. These are things that people within a space cannot do for themselves. These are things that we need the government to do for us to enable the industry. So what we are really asking for is enablement. And it's not like these things these things were your promises. So if the promises are executed, it will enable the industry for the industry to be able to get ahead. So what they would like to continue, I'm happy. What they haven't done, at least we would like to understand the reason why these things have not been done, and what is going to come out from it in terms of the future, like what the plans are. I think those are the areas I would like to look at.
On the back of all the promises that they've already made to Ghanaians and not fulfilling them, but still making all these promises, do you think these key four points are what we really need? Do we need tax incentives? Don't we have already existing digital streaming platforms? We have most of the production houses who produce films have streaming platforms now where their movies are on, and most of us are already using the foreign platforms. Do we need a streaming platform? Do we need tax incentives now, or do we need the infrastructure and pumping money into the human resources so that these people, giving them the star power and the resources to be able to showcase their talent without any hindrances? Are these what Ghana's creative arts industry need right now?
Very interesting question. And I think that some of them we need. For instance, the tax incentives. I mean, it's one of the greatest things that if it is done by the team, as in led by Woyome, it's going to be a very great help for the movie industry. Listen, you have foreigners coming into this country to shoot. The kind of processes that they go through, you marvel when they go to immigration. When they bring in their logistics, i.e. the cameras and all those things, the charge that they give them, it's enormous. It is something that we need to see the team, bring that incentives into there so that it will allow room for these people to come in with all these logistics and machines. Remember, these machines and these cameras that they are using, we don't even have a quarter of it in this country to shoot correct movies and good movies. So this thing is also preventing these foreign film operators to come into the country to help us do what we have to do in terms of movie. Again, if a Ghanaian wants to also import, bring in these set of machines, investors within the space want to bring, and then for people to also use, it is also costly for them to also bring in these things, apart from buying it out there. So I think it is one of the things that if they work on, if they stamp their feet on, it will really work for them. Now, the other incentives you're talking about, if you recall, our Deputy Minister for Tourism, Art and Culture, Marco Krekomante, when Yi-Levy was introduced, brought in the idea and said that bloggers, people who patronize YouTube and all these YouTubers and all that, they should be charged. The headlines are there. Everybody can Google it. Check Marco Krekomante and Yi-Levy charges and all that. He came to tell the same sector that they need to be charged because they are working. Now you ask yourself, the same people who are using the YouTube and are already being charged with the process of YouTube, their procedures and policies. I
must insert that data is even too expensive, so Ghanaians are unable to stream the products that we are putting.
But here you are, you have your deputy minister encouraging, the same government, the same Woyome, when they introduce the levy, to start or to clamp on us and take these charges. And that's these people who do the YouTube and all that. The moment even their monies come, charges are already been deducted already. Now check again. They still have NHIL thing on it. They still have the Yi-Levy thing on it. They still have all the charges like they're doing to the betting people. So when you have all these things in place, and then you turn around to come and tell us that you still want to give tax incentives. We tend to really want to understand where you're coming from. That's why I keep saying that the ill advice that is really going to him, because now he says he's in charge. He wants to do something good. He needs the advice of these same creatives. But the people who are really giving him those advice is not giving the correct advice. So for us, the tax incentives is good. It's something like Robert said, it's something that will work for the industry. Now, moving beyond that, I think that there are certain things we need to let them know that it is better other than these few things that they want to do. Now listen, we'll give them free advice. I'll give them two. First one, Woyome had been giving us things about digitalization, figures, data, and all that. I was expecting that the same people advising him on creative art would have told him that the first major thing he needed to do, or he needs to do when it comes to power, is to get us data. Now, because the industry doesn't have a data, you will have people, government coming, government going, and we will not have anything better for the creatives. Now listen, the same Makokreku Mante, I'll use him as an example. When he, under their own manifesto, said that they were going to build studios, okay, recording studios, there are the same people came to tell us that some managers or studio people said that we don't need the studios and all that. He only relied on 2 or 3 people who were commenting on this particular thing because we didn't have data. Now, every policy maker will want to have a data to work with. Teachers have data, nurses have data, so they can tell you they have 2 million people or 2 million nurses in the country. Tell me, who for the last 8 years have told you that we have 30,000 creatives within the space? Out of the 30,000, we have 10,000 who are fashion designers, 15,000 are sculptors, 20,000 are musicians, 10,000 are producers, directors. Who has given you that? So we can't even go to parliament, we can't even go to the same system to say that, listen, finance, this is what our people need. We need to inject almost about $2 million to $3 million into the industry. What are we looking at? We are looking at this sector with this population for us to deal with.
That's an interesting point again, talking of data and tax incentives, but let me ride on that a little and ask, because you mentioned policies, do we have a working creative art in the creative industry policy or any legislative instrument that sets the path or, you know, guides the activities of how to actually ensure that our creative arts industry is thriving? Do you want to take that?
So there's a bill that has been passed.
It's passed, yes.
It's passed.
That's Creative Arts Agency.
The only thing is what is needed is a legal instrument, the LI, to make it operative.
Right.
And that's what we are waiting for. So it's passed, but it's not functional.
Were you actively involved? Was there any stakeholder consultation?
Oh, there were series of stakeholder consultations that were made. And
really?
Yeah. There were. I mean,
is there really?
Well,
so you throw more like
no,
if that's what, yeah.
At the end of the day, okay. So there were consultations made. For me, is the fact that it is not fully operational. That's what that's where the question mark is. So we need to be able to have that work. And there's also the cultural policy that I think right now they are the consultations they are reviewing. Yeah. But even the old one, I don't know, because if they are reviewing, then what does it mean? Does it mean that the old one is no more active?
Yes.
If it's not active, that means there's vacancy.
Yes.
You know, so again, that's something that is lacking that we need to be able to address. So these things exist, but at the end of the day, we need to be able to give it the power for it to be able to function and helpful. For me, I think that's one of the biggest challenges that we have, and we need to be able to address them. If you're asking about whether what do you call it, the things that have been mentioned, no, not even that. Those are some of the guidelines, but once they become operational, then it becomes easier, because then the industry begins to breathe based on things that have been set aside for it. Now, my biggest challenge right now is that in terms of the things that have been listed, whether or not we need them, clearly we need tax incentives, we need the e-visa, we need, all of this continuity and stuff like that. We need all of them. The digital streaming platform is one of the areas where people are questioning, and there are reasons for it. The success of any streaming platform hinges on a few things. The first one is the fact that you ask yourself, how are you going to stream? it means you are going to stream based on data. And if you are going to stream based on data and data is now expensive, it becomes a bit difficult for you to want to stream. That is one. Then two, so it means until we address the data issue, you are not going to be too successful when it comes to that particular field.
Right.
The other bit is the fact that internet penetration, I think, is about 70% thereabouts. But if you check those who are directly streaming on or who are active on social media, which has got a direct correlation with streaming behavior, it's about just 10 million thereabouts. And so that figure is not going to do much. You understand? So if that figure is not going to do much, then what is going to be the basis for the success of running a streaming platform? Now, there are other streaming platforms that already exist, and they are literally trying to onboard a lot of Ghanaians because, again, these, we are not used to it.
But those are private platforms.
They are
private.
They are private platforms, and some of them are free, and still they are having difficulty getting people on. So we are talking about the feasibility of the project and what it means. Right. And at what point are you going to have success enough for people to start earning? Because the number of streams is what informs how much you're also going to get paid for. If you understand what I'm saying.
Yes.
Like if I'm supposed to pay you, the number of streams is supposed to actually connect to it. So the question is, what market size are you going to be working with? When you have the Spotifys who are working in millions and stuff like that, huge numbers. And the question is, how are you going to work around all of these elements? So yes, it can work, but I see it working late. And are there things that we need almost immediately that can bring about change? It's mentioned data in terms of we understanding the people in the space, and that's critical. And one of the areas that I think, after a lot of stakeholder consultations and all the engagement in this particular space, if you want to do for musicians, for example, is fix the royalty system.
Yes.
The issue with GAMO and all of these things, if you can fix it, you have solved a lot of problems. Why? Because there is evidence enough, and this one came from one of the sessions with the French ambassador when we had some talks. Yeah, they told us clearly that there are even people in France who they've been able to feed their family because of the royalty system from just one hit track.
Yeah, people live on
just
YouTube.
one.
Yes.
Yeah, just one. That's what I'm saying. So if, for example, a whole country we are playing music, royalty collection is a problem, and the redistribution is a problem, and we are not able to monetize, and that whole space, we need to be able to fix it. If we can fix it, it's just like the year of return bit. One project that has got lasting impact, because you see there are three wings of the music industry. We have the live music section, we have the publishing section, and then we have the recorded music section. So if you're able to fix the publishing section, then that's it, because authors and composers are supposed to be earning royalties every time music is played.
Right.
And we ought to be able to do that. And so that area for me is one of the key things, that it's a need. Because there are people who are dying today who don't have any form of, pension. You understand? Like people within the arts, we are not part of the pension scheme. That's another problem.
Yeah. Yes.
We are not part. Like I go to work, so automatically I am part of the SNIT. I'm sorted out everything. But if you are in the arts,
meanwhile, you know that I've been to comedy shows, stand-up comedy shows, and right after the show ended, you see GR representatives there coming to take money from
so that's the tax bit that we're talking about.
So they're taking money from these artists, but there's no system in place. Michael Jackson, case in point, after he died in 2009, his children still live on the royalties that he made from his music. So yes, indeed, we need all that.
Yeah, so we need to fix that.
Which begs the question, do you think that the people at the helm of affairs, the ministers and on the people who play at the top of power, need to be creative artists or industry players, also because I remember you from last year saying that what's her name? Jan Kroma was not a legit appointment for.
Sure.
Yes. So do you think that the industry, the people at the helm of affairs must be industry players in order for us to, be successful or thrive as an industry?
So when we say industry, I just want to explain something. Industry doesn't necessarily mean I must be an artist, but I must be a professional within the space. So we have music business professionals, or we have the professionals who engineer success within the space. Once you are a professional in the space, it means you understand. Once you understand, it's a bit easier for you to execute. So if you are an industry person, then obviously we expect for you to be able to understand, appreciate, and be able to, if you have the skill, the experience, the knowledge, and the character to be able to handle that. Why not? You should be able to do that. So for me, that's the most important thing, because knowledge plays key, but a key role. If you take out the knowledge, if you are not an industry person, then it means you must have all the other things that we are looking for.
Right.
So regardless of what it is, you should be somebody who's able to take action and get things done, and to be able to bring about solution, and you should be able to account. One of the things I'm hoping for us to be able to have is a quarterly review of what you've promised.
Right.
Yeah, you have a ministry that is running for 4 years. Every quarter, just talk to us, stakeholders. This is what we set out to do, this is where we are at, and if there are any questions whatsoever, ask, and then we'll give you up. Because you see, accountability is one of the requirements of the Constitution. So it's not like I'm asking for anything out of space. You understand what I'm saying? A ministry serves, yes, so you are there to serve, and you're going to serve for a particular period. Okay, so every 3 months, let me take along the people. Then you talk, or even if like half a year.
Please hold your thoughts.
You understand what I'm saying?
Come to Kojo. Do you think that, our current deputy minister was an industry player, and it still doesn't look like his expertise is actually doing anything in Ghana's quest for development, especially in the creative arts industry? Do you think that the actual ministers, deputies, the CEOs in the tourism agency and all that, must they be industry players? And how pivotal would it be?
Okay, so I think that what we should also again know is that the moment they pick you as a minister and then deputy and all that, you tend not to be too active in terms of doing the job. It is rather the agencies that are really, doing their job, and we need much expertise there, even though it's an advantage when you have the ministers or probably the deputy ministers coming from that same area. And that's the more reason why, if you check this particular government, they were specific. They said that, listen, Mark, take in charge. So anytime they say he is in charge of creative art, meaning he is the one that they see to be an expert, or they see him to be someone who can really, shuffle things and all that. But one of the agencies that is supposed to deal with that, supposed to take care of us, is what they've done. The Creative Art Agency, Act 1048, which was established in 2020. It was one of them.
How is that faring?
Bad, extremely bad. Now, Claire was saying that it is left with LI. It is left with LI to really explain further in details what the act is supposed to do and all that. But clearly, we have the driver's daughter sitting down there, not doing anything to help the creatives. So that was one of the things that I was going to say, that Bawumia should rather be looking at that, because the structures are there already. We have fine, serious policy that can deal with the creative art when it comes to the art sector. But here we are not being taken care of by an established, real, under the law, appointed somebody to do that. So if we are talking about wanting to see we have a good direction, it is in the book, lying down. But if we don't have that particular person who is going to lead, plus a board, and here is a president who is supposed to, evoke his own law, under the Constitution 195, to appoint an executive secretary and appoint a board through the minister. As we said, for the past 4 to 5 years, we have not gotten anybody, but rather we still have an illegitimate daughter of hers sitting there and not doing anything.
But what are we doing for ourselves?
We cannot do anything for ourselves when the law which is empowering us to do it. For instance, do you know that creatives would have been much better like GTA or the tourism industry? Do you know that even in the act, it tells us that we need to take 1%, just as GTA is taking 1% from restaurants, hotels, and all that as levy, we should have also taken 1% levy from all enterprises within the creative sector. Okay, that would have given us enough revenue, enough money to execute the projects that we want to do. So that is what the government has done. But clearly, who is pushing for that particular agenda? It's a failure. For me, I think it's one of the things that they need to really hammer on.
That's in line with the Creative Arts Fund.
Yes. That would have also built the Creative Art Fund. Now we have 2 funds that we need to build. Like you said, the NFE fund. We haven't done that, the film fund, which is supposed to also be done, okay, and help, improve the film industry. We haven't seen that. We have the Creative Art Agency, which is supposed to have a fund that we're also not seeing anything coming out from it. So what else do you want us to do? You talking about incentives, you're talking about this, you have just taken bits and pieces of what is in the policy, what is in the act.
We don't
and
have
you're not
enough
giving
time.
it to us.
I have two last questions before we wrap this up. So let me just throw that in. What do you think is the role of the diasporans in helping us thrive? We know that one of Ghana's artists, Medical, MDK, he's trying to fill the O2 and he's funding it himself. Don't you think that if Ghanaians outside, the diasporans, could come together and do something to help these artists achieve these dreams, it would also go in a long way to boost our industry rather than latching on these foreign award schemes like the Grammys? And we actually judge the success of our artists by their ability to gain recognition from international award schemes. VGMA is there. So what role does the diasporans play, again, in our quest for development in the creative arts industry? You go.
I think that's a.
I like the way you giggle before you said
exactly
it.
because you've said it in a very simple way, but it's a tall conversation.
Yes. Because
there are so many points to it, and you're saying there's no time, so I doubt. I doubt how we can speak to it. First of all, we need to understand that, like I was saying earlier, because you said Medical and he said his own money. You see,
he's funding it himself.
No, I'm coming.
I'm saying that he's not getting any support.
I get you. I'm coming.
I don't know if it's his.
There's a problem already we have in this particular space with respect to music business. Businesses are supposed to be responsible for pushing the agenda of artists. So when we say, for example, when I say business, I don't just mean any business. I mean there are music businesses, like businesses that are there for music only. You understand? And when you fix all these things I'm talking about, at the end of the day, you find out that these businesses will exist. So, for example, and I'm going to use foreign companies to be able to explain what I'm doing. When we talk about Tupac and his success, but let's not forget there was a Suge Knight who was running the business that was behind him. We talk about Biggie Smalls and his success. Let's not forget there was Bad Boy Records by Puff Daddy that was responsible for him. When Jay-Z struggled hard to be able to break through, to get record labels to support him and he couldn't find, he paired up with Dame Dash. And Dame Dash, and him started running the Rockefeller record label that was responsible for engineering his success. So there's a business that manages. So when you go to Links, so for example, the Links Entertainment is the business that is managing these artists. You understand what I'm saying? So the question is, these things we're talking about, is it a one-man business? So is it like a sole proprietorship? Is it a small-scale business? Is it a medium-scale business? Is it a large-scale business? So Links, for example, is 20 years now. How old is multimedia? Probably a few years older than Links. Yeah. But could Links have been a bigger African giant in the space with respect to music? Because the Bad Boy Records I knew of when they were starting, it's not the same size right now. It's a huge company. If Akon had not formed his company, Lady Gaga and co that came out from him wouldn't have been seen. So I am coming to the point. So I understand your question, but your question has to also come with a little bit of insights, because it's not just about
the business side, like you said.
So the business side doesn't exist.
It comes from resources, and the diasporans have the resources. I'm saying,
I don't want to get into that particular space yet. You also have to begin by helping yourself before you're helping other people. So I want to talk about the fact that that particular space is empty, and we don't have music business school in this country when it comes to empowering people. So again, if our leaders are listening, they're looking for things that they can do, that's another area, because you need to have a professional. We don't have entertainment lawyers. What are the entertainment lawyers? How many are they? And who is, they are lawyers, but they are not, in our space. And we need people to be able to come into our space with clear understanding, you understand, and be able to put things into their right place. So that said, now with respect to the diaspora, what they can do is, if they love your song, you see, you can only appeal to nationality. Come and support your own. Come and support your own. But ultimately, it's a bit difficult for you. You see, you can ask somebody that come and support me, but the question is, when they don't, what if they don't like your music? You can't force them. That's what I'm saying. You have to appeal to nationality for them to be able. So that's what I'm saying. That the question, I understand you, but I think there are better ways to be, there are more insightful ways to be able to handle the topic, and we need to be able to get into that particular space. And many more analysis, like I'm saying, there's live music. Live music is a whole sector when it comes to the music industry. And when you understand it, at the end of the day, there's supposed to be somebody booking, and there's supposed to be a promoter who is funding these things. So the question you are asking,
lack the systems, the fundamentals to set the path.
Good.
These things.
Yes, you lack them, and yet, and some of these things are not even local. It's supposed to be foreign, because when you're going to a foreign market, you need the people there to be able to do that for you. So that's what I'm saying. Your question, I understand the question, but
you've answered it regardless.
No, but so there are quite a number of things that we need to look in that particular space.
Finally, though, do you think that the merger of the creative arts industry together with tourism and sports is doing a disservice to creative arts? If you take out creative arts, for example, again, in Bawumia's speech, he went on and on about sports, but he only said 3 or 4 sentences about creative arts. I'll incentivize taxes. I'll bring streaming platforms. Do you think that we need to separate this creative arts industry and treat it as a whole? Because most developed countries, they have most of their monies or resources, tourism, the recognition that they're getting is coming from their entertainment and creative arts industry. Do you think that ours need to stand alone in order for us to see the success that we so much are looking for?
No, I think that we should still maintain it, because it works in tandem with all of them. For instance, you made mention sports. Here we are, we had GTA doing a road tour to Ivory Coast. They did.
Yeah.
GTA did. You ask yourself, what did the creative art industry, or as in the creatives, or the creatives did in that particular sense? They didn't do anything. Because I'm saying that if we have the necessary policies in place and we have people managing it, you will see that sales smooth in it. Because again, tourism cannot run without creative art. Now we're talking about beyond the return and blah, blah, blah. It's tourism. They are coming into the country. What are they enjoying? They're enjoying the creatives. They're enjoying the music. They're enjoying the football. They're enjoying every single thing. So we need to find a way of connecting the dots very well. Other than that, by the time you realize, when you have a whole sector, creative art having its own ministry, this is what happens to the system. You're going to have chief director. You're going to have all those people. You're going to have a serious budget for them, okay, to really do a job. You're going to pay them. It's going to be a hefty thing on a wage bill. We don't want that. If you can just connect the dots well, we'll be the best ever when it comes to that.
Let me quickly add to that.
I don't want us to.
Okay. We have GTA.
Yeah.
And they are very heavy. They are working.
Yes.
And every now and then you hear, the director of GTA, they are working.
Yeah.
If we throw in the same weight to the arts section, which is a creative arts agency, and it's fully functional, you also see a lot of things happening in that particular space. Right. Yeah. And they're all together functioning underneath the ministry. You understand? Again, so you have 8 years or you have 4 years whatsoever, you have people who are supposed to be working. The question is, what are you doing every day? What are you doing every month, every quarter? Can we know? Is there a way we can help? Can we, because you're working for us, we are the people that you're doing the stuff for. Let us understand what you're doing. Let us throw in what has to be done, and let us work together. Really, that's my point. Regardless,
so we don't need a ministry separate.
No, I don't think we need. I think what we have, just like we have GTA. In fact, the National Film Authority, the authority there now, you'd realize that there's a lot of things that they will do for the film industry, and it continues like that. So once you have the Creative Arts Agency, if we can just empower them, ensure that the LI required and everything is in place, they should be able to function properly. They need to be resourced, and then they should be able to deliver. You understand? So I think the structures are in place. If we can just give them some form of weight and action, so that we can, get things done. The policies that are supposed to be passed, these things we can't do for ourselves. That's what I'm saying. We can't. The cultural policy, we can't do it for ourselves. It should be done. The LI that we need, there are things that we can't do for ourselves. If they can get that done, that is the beginning of the enablement we are talking about. Then we can move to the next stage.
So if we can't get these things done by ourselves, what are you industry players, what are we doing to make our voices heard? I was impressed by Save Ghana football demonstration and all that, because they've realized that it's time that the government listen to the cries of the people and elevate their grievance, because football is declining. We used to be giants. What is the creative arts industry doing to ensure that your voices are heard, so that Dr. Bawumia doesn't say he's going to list all these promises and then come back 4 years, 8 years later, nothing is done? Let's wrap up with that. You take that.
Okay, so the beginning of that is, so first of all, let's assume that if we go out on the streets, it's going to work. I'm saying let's assume. Because sometimes you go out there and then it's not able to pull much, right? But let's assume that it's going to work. then it means that we need to do that. I am for everything.
But have
and
you
anything.
tried
Wait,
it? Have you tried going out and it didn't work?
I'm for everything and anything. So we have access to these people, and then we need to be able to talk to them. We need to be able to hold. For me, okay, let me just mention one thing that for me would work. Accountability every 3 months. It's very simple because we know these people, and it's not just about me. I think it's supposed to be a collective, and then the collective is supposed to engage these folks so that we can get them to talk to us. Really, if we can do that, that's fine. Demonstration and stuff, yeah, sweet and all of that, but it's not like we don't have access to these people. So if people are listening, I think that at the end of the day, that's one of the key things we should focus on. How do we engage these people in a room? Let's just have a conversation. What is happening? Listen to us and get things done. Really, I mean,
that is if they will come.
I think we should be able to do that.
Well,
so she's asked a very important question. Yeah. We should be able to do that.
I think the demo can also work because most times some of the things it doesn't really get to the right people. I mean, I'll give you an example. When John Mahama and his government in 2016 brought us NFA, as the National Film Act, the 1935. They refused to also give us the executive secretary and the board for a period of long time. We had a picketing done by NFA Action Group and FOCA. We did a picketing at the ministry. Within that same space, before Christmas, President Nana Akufo-Addo gave us Juliet Asante and what's his name? David Donto as the board chairman for NFA. Even though we have serious issues there, but the point is something was done. That was an achievement through the picketing and all that. We had series of meetings on that, so it can work. Others, I believe what Claire is saying, we need to meet them. They are not like our politicians where we can't meet them. We mingle with them. We see them every single time. It is just that they're refusing to, and I want to use the word, maybe they're becoming adamant in making things work for us. So for instance,
so you are speaking up, they're just not listening.
They are not listening to us. We can do all the demonstrations and everything. Maybe when we do the demonstration, our father will just come up from the window and say, what is really happening?
Let me say
that you guys are not telling me that these guys need. You understand? Because that's a stance now.
We need to wrap this up. Yeah.
Final
words. 30 seconds.
Yeah, that's fine. I just wanted to say that, okay, so we speak on platforms like this and then we air our views and people hear it and all of that. But I honestly believe that we should find ways and means to engage them directly over and over again.
Okay.
Because they are available. Because I like the fact that we talk on air because you want to be able to share and let the majority of the folks know. But if we have access to these people, then we need a collective front in engaging constantly.
I like that you said collective.
Exactly, collective front in engaging, because that's what I think.
Yeah. Well, I think that all said and done, the creatives need a good environment to operate. We need our policies to work. We need that space, and obviously we can really turn the country down for them to know that indeed we have what it takes to give them their GDPs and all those things. Yeah. We have it, and I think that they should spend on us. By spending on us, we need the right things to be done. My advice again to Dr. Bawumia is that the chameleons are back. He should not heed to these ill advices coming from these people. They have done it, It failed, he doesn't need them.
Thank you very much. So this is the end of this conversation on Dr. Bawumia's plan for the creative arts industry. And we've been chatting with industry players on their thoughts, opinions, and analysis of what is wrong, what should be done, and how Ghana can achieve their quest for development, particularly in the creative arts industry. Kojo Preko Dankwa is convener, Foundation for Concerned Arts Professionals. And we also have Mr. Kla, who's a creative industry entrepreneur, creative arts industry entrepreneur. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us.
All right.
There's still more coming up on the AM show in a moment. Don't go away. We will be right back. I don't know about you, but I'm having a happy Friday. But this is the last leg on today's edition of the show. Right now, we are going to host a young man who's leading a group of students from German to turn the fortunes of their community. They are putting up libraries, computers, schools, etc. I'm joined by Andrew Ajiman Boateng, whose Andrew Ajenim Boateng, project manager for German North Technology Center, and Bright Anane, who's also project member for German North Technology Center in Sapa. Gentlemen, It's good to have you. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
By the grace of God, we are doing great.
Right. Let's begin with a little brief. Tell me a little bit about this ICT project that you've got going.
Oh, okay.
In German, yeah.
Okay, so as you rightly said, we are from German North in the Bono region.
Okay.
And we are students, past students of the various universities in Ghana. So when we were in school, we had student unions from German North Students Union. So after school, we decided to, having given to society some of the things we have acquired from the university, we thought it's right to put up an ICT center for our younger brothers and sisters in German North in order to beef up their education in the district, which was in ICT and library activities, which was a gap in our time. We wanted to let them have a feel of what urban children were having. We didn't get at our time.
That's so generous of you. How are you funding this?
Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Yeah.
So it's a community-led project.
Okay.
And we are engaging everybody in the society to contribute his or her quota towards the development of our own communities. So the funding has been an internal funding. So we seek and solicit for funding from the churches, from the traditional councils, the banks, and the institutions working within. And our people in the diaspora who are not in Ghana to also contribute towards the project. Right. And this whole thing started in 2021, and we have been soliciting for one bag of cement, a little here, a little there, creates newness in the world. And that is the newness that you people are seeing.
Yeah, so that's what's on the screen now.
Yes, please.
So this is what you've put up.
Yes, please.
From consolidating funds from all past students.
Yes.
From German
North.
German North. Right. Wow. How was the process for you? Did you encounter any challenges? Was it smooth? Because this is great work.
Well, thank you. The process has not been easy. And we really had some few challenges along the line. You know, it has never been easy for any leader working in a bifurcated community in lines with intensive chieftaincy disputes. When there are chieftaincy factions and you are operating in such a society as a leader, definitely you're going to get challenges. That notwithstanding, trust issues. You see, most of the people don't really trust in the leadership of the generation S, Y, Z, and even the current alpha generation that we have. The young guys come to take our monies and go and spend.
Yeah.
So trust issues came up. But we're able to, calm everything down, clear that cobwebs from the minds of people, created an environment that people could trust and believe in what we can do. Believe in the capacities of the youth, the bandwidth to do the project by ourselves, and then make sure that the people will get involved, and then we build this project for the benefit of our own selves, the next generations to come.
So the building we saw, is it stocked?
Not yet.
Okay, but you have the equipment?
Not yet.
Oh.
Yes. So
okay.
What we are doing is that for now we are focusing on completing the project, God willing, this year. And so by August we are hoping to inaugurate or to dedicate the project. And after that, we have spoken with other corporates, Ghana, to come to our aid so that we can stock the place. So for now we are focusing on finishing so that we can get it done.
Right. So I'm sure you need some help because if this is not yet stocked, you need a lot of money and resources. What are some of the things that you need in case someone is watching you who wants to come to your aid?
All right. Currently, we need computers. We need 150 computers, and then we need books. So what we have done is we have spoken to Ghana Library Authority for support. And then when we complete, Ghana Library Authority will take over the project or the facility and then manage it. And we have also spoken to GIFEC for computers. We're hoping to get feedback from them. And then we're using this opportunity and platform to appeal to eleemosynary institutions, NGOs, individuals to donate, government agencies, government organizations who has the capacity or the resources to help us. Because we're trying to help bridge the digital divide gap which has existed between the rural child and that of the urban child's education.
Right.
And also to empower marginalized societies and communities when it comes to IT-related matters.
So hopefully this doesn't only stay in Jaman. You know, you can go across your own community and do more.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We are ever ready to operate in any other community that is willing to accept,
Right.
especially when the traditional rulers are willing to, help. And currently we have started our second project. That will be a mini project in one of our sister communities.
Oh.
And that is the next constituency, the Tyne district, Brody community. Yeah, and they have come together, they've accepted to donate cement, lands, and stuff like that.
Okay.
And very soon we are going to complete it. So we want people to really involve themselves in community development.
Right.
We don't want the issue whereby the infrastructure burden will be on government, MP, DCE, or the traditional rulers alone. But creating an environment where everybody will be inclusive,
right,
or will include in that process.
All right. Thank you. So, Andrew, any final words? We're wrapping this up.
All right. Yeah. So, my final words goes to the people of Germanov, the traditional rulers, churches, mosques, anybody, philanthropists across Ghana who have helped us so far to get into where we have got into. We will continue to plead that corporate Ghana should come to our aid. Anybody that can support in any capacity come to our aid, so that whilst government is doing its part, individuals like us, young people like us, also want to put our name on the mark, help our societies develop so that together we can build the Ghana we want.
Thank you so much for joining us. This is Jamai North Technology Center, project manager and project member. Yeah, okay. It's a good work that you're doing. Right, so this is how we wrap it up for the week and for today, Friday on the AM show. My name is Sweetie Abochi. I did